To another edition of the Rodcast. Oh, I love shows like today. Lots of football to discuss. Steve Sarkisian, he took the stage yesterday at SEC Media Days. I thought he knocked it out of the park. We'll get into that. We'll hear from the head coach of the Texas football team, Steve Sarkisian. Got plenty of audio there. We'll also hear from Quinn Ewers, the starting quarterback from Texas. Two of the other players, my man Jade Barron, also Kelvin Banks. We'll get into as much of that audio as we can to break down Texas football. We're inching closer and closer to football season. Whether we know whether you're talking about the NFL or college, we know the Texans, the first team to report all of their players to training camp. So we'll talk tons of football on the show, but also specifically Texas football. We'll get into SEC Media Days, what Sark had to say about the team, the culture. They got into some specifics, some things that I predicted that Texas would do. We'll get into that. Sark already confirmed one of my predictions about Texas football this upcoming season, so we'll get into that. We'll talk about Quinn Ewers. He got into discussion about the Aggie game. He actually made a comment about the Texas A&M game that we'll get into a little bit later on the show. There's also some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. In Mirage rant of the day, we'll dive into something that makes a few defenses in the NFL special, including last year's Dallas Cowboys team, and the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk about that, and we get into Raj rant of the day. We got your usual favorites. We got who said that. We got off the record. We got what the facts, what the stats. We got your topic for the big fat poll of the day. So we're loaded on the show as usual. Lots of football, so it's going to be a damn good one. Before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but I'm pretty damn sure this man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. It does feel a little anticlimactic that SEC Media Days is continuing today.
Yeah, Texas is not the last act, if you will.
And I mean, it's that somewhat, and then it's also like the fact that OU was going. If OU was still there because they're the two new teams, it felt like that was really a big piece of what Media Days was, especially in Dallas. That was a big piece. And you wonder how much of the Aggies are going to take offense to being left at the end, and then people being like, "We're kind of spent. We're on day 4. We're a little bit spent now." And they're going to be like, "Hey, you take that. You saved the best for last." And then they're going to be like, everyone's like, "We're tired, man. This has been 4 days nonstop."
Who are the other teams that are there? Because you're right, they did. Georgia's already done it. Texas, Oklahoma,
Bama's already done it.
Bama, yeah.
Like everyone is
I
going.
didn't think
already.
about that. Yeah, like a lot of the marquee teams, or at least the ones with the best at least the most notoriety and brand recognition. Seems like they've already gone. I didn't think about that, Patrick, but you're right. See, now you're throwing it in Aggie's face and start the show off like that. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. If you do want to say that now that they've already peaked, that they've already had the peak
so yeah,
of
you
SEC
get
Media Days.
Arkansas, A&M, Auburn, and Kentucky.
Wow, they did that on purpose. They did it on purpose. Like I mean, why not spread it out? Why not spread out the star power? Like we know who the big brands are in the SEC. Even the SEC has very big brands, and like you said, the big story is the newcomers, specifically Texas. Why not spread that out? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that at the end?
I don't know, but that's the thing. Is like that last day, it just seems like you're a little tired. You've already gone 3 straight days of
not
doing
if they
this.
put Texas at the end.
And well, but if you put,
the complaint would have been, why'd you put Texas at the end?
Exactly.
Are they the big show? Yeah, they should have put like Bama or Georgia at the end.
Yeah, could have put Bama or Georgia at the end.
Should have put Bama or Georgia at the end. You put Texas on the third day, Oklahoma. You put Bama or Georgia at the end. You save one of those big names. I'm with you. That's not cool, man.
No, because like by the time you
That's
get to
games,
you get to Mark Stoops in Kentucky, the last one, people already leaving.
People pack. I was just want to say, people packing up, man. People packing up.
I got beat traffic, man.
I'm getting back. I'll get that off the YouTube. I'll get that.
It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I gotta get back, man. Okay.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Okay, yeah, you make a good point. I don't know why they did that. They know very well who the big brands are.
Because like
right now,
we've done Big 12 Media Days, and it's 2 days. We would do 2 days at it, and by the end of day 2, you were like, "I've done too much." Like it's just too many questions and too many people, and you're just like, I'm kind of just out of it already because you ask the same question 100 times, and you do it. You're kind of and you've already talked to everybody that's there. You've already done everything, and then like what Iowa State would walk in, and you'd be like, look, Iowa State's no disrespect, but we're done. We were done.
We're done. We're spent already. I don't know why they did that. There are 4 brands I think right now that are considered, just at this point, they are considered the sexier, like featured big time brands, even in the SEC, just because of the circumstances, the environment, whatever. And I mean, those 4 should have been spread out.
I mean, you can even put LSU there. LSU's still a bigger brand.
LSU works too. Yeah, LSU is a bigger brand too. And no disrespect to those other schools that are going to.
No, I mean Arkansas, A&M, and Auburn are all right there in that next level.
Yes,
they're right there in the next, but there's just not the premier. And I mean, even if you want to say that, but Texas and OU being new, that gives them that shine.
Yeah,
because what do they say? Like pretty much out of the 12 coaches that have been up so far, 7 of them got asked questions about Texas so far.
Hell, I would.
I read that the other day.
If it's I bet if they can include like breakout sessions.
Yeah,
and everything else, it's probably,
they're saying like on the podium. I think 7 of the 12 coaches that win in the first 3 days, and then you say, well, Arkansas and A&M are.
No, that's guaranteed. Yeah,
so,
and Kentucky plays them.
And then Kentucky plays them, and then you bet Kentucky, somebody's going to mention to Auburn that they've said that the Red River rivalry is better than the Iron Bowl.
They'll talk about the Iron
so
Bowl.
we may get all 4 today.
Yep. You could.
or maybe all the Texas people went home yesterday, and we'll see.
Even if it's not Texas people, I think you'll still get some of those questions. But no, I didn't realize that, Patrick. You're right. I don't know why they would do that. Whoever scheduled that, that's unfair. You got to have more awareness than that to know who the big brands are and to spread those out. Force the media, like you said, to stay that last day, whether it be about leaving Texas there. If you don't want to give Texas that much respect and give them that much clout, totally get it. Put Bama, Georgia, like you said, even LSU there will force like half the folks to say, well, I got to get this Brian Kelly stuff. Brian Kelly may say something crazy. We got to stick around.
We got to find out if Brian Kelly still has an accent.
Yeah, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like he's interesting enough. I will stick around, and they did not do that. I don't know what that's. I'm sorry, Aggies. That's some little brother stuff. They got 2 little brothers in there too. They got Auburn and they got the Aggies.
Yeah, I know. Do you think this is like when you're at a bar and it's like 1 a.m. and you're like, you're open for an hour, but they start playing really bad music. You're trying to get us out of here, aren't you?
Yes.
you were trying to you're trying to clean up a little bit early. Like caps are already going on the bottles.
Bartender, he's going out slow. Yeah, he's starting to clean up. Like, what you doing, man? Hold up, man. You gotta get out. We got an hour. They're throwing off hints. That's a hint. I don't know what they're trying to say with that. They're implying something because they know damn near y'all know what y'all doing. SEC.
Oh, there you go. Let me introduce you to my co-host who never takes off early. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod Father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
Appreciate the intro, man. Great observation there, though. I didn't even think about it, but you're damn right. I was wondering who was available today via the SEC Media Days, but I cannot believe that they put all of the marquee brands in the SEC in the first 3 days. All right. We'll get to more SEC Media Days discussion. Matter of fact, we're going to hear from Steve Sarkisian here coming up momentarily. But before we do that, first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with my man Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines. Then we'll come back and hear from Steve Sarkisian talking Texas football.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Team USA improved to 3-0 after a 105-79 win over Serbia yesterday. Steph Curry led the way early, scoring USA's first 9 points before finishing with 24 on the game. Serbia kept it tight, tying the game at 28, all with a buzzer beater before the end of the first quarter. USA was able to pull away in the second quarter, though, getting a 14-point lead before half. Bam Adebayo had 17 points, while Anthony Edwards had another good game, scoring 16. Team USA now heads to London for its next warm-up game with South Sudan on Saturday. And in the MLB, teams are getting ready to restart their season tomorrow, with the Rangers welcoming the AL-leading Orioles to Arlington, while the Astros are heading to Seattle to take on the Mariners in a series for control of the AL West. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the horn headlines. Let's talk about Sark. I thought Sark did a great job. His presence, the tone, delivery. I thought he spoke to different generations of Longhorn fans, talking about the rivalries and some of the terms that he dropped, which we'll get into a little bit later on. He had a Mac Brown filibuster at the beginning, which was nice. Little Mac Brown. Mac was famous for, hey, I got 30 minutes. Don't worry.
Oh,
15 of those.
No. Hey,
I'll just take them straight to filibuster.
As someone who cut up the audio, and I was like, when are we getting to questions?
Yeah. Just straight up filibuster, man. But I will say there was some meat in there, though. It wasn't just, honestly, I ain't gonna lie, a lot of the meat was in the initial, so it felt like filibuster, but it actually wasn't, because I think he was actually giving you meat, talking about their playing style. He talked about, kind of their theme of the year, and there are some other terms that he dropped that I thought were significant and relevant.
I'm curious. We have the same term that I heard multiple players use, and I've not heard them use in years past. I'm curious. We'll keep that going. So there's one that caught my ear because it said a lot throughout it, and it was one of those things where you're like, I don't think I've heard this term used a lot by this team until this year. Yes,
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep. And I think it's actually one of the terms I'm referring to.
Yes.
I think we're talking about the same thing, but we may not, and I hope we're not, actually, because I hope you're going to enlighten me about something which you just did when you were talking about the SEC Media Days and how they structure things. I still don't know why the hell they would structure the last day of SEC Media Days the way they did, with two little brothers and other kind of second tier programs instead of kind of the top tier program.
I mean, Arkansas is rich now, right?
Yeah. No, Arkansas is great. I feel like I'm disrespecting Arkansas. And Sark disrespected them too. I don't know. We might have to get that Sark quote about Arkansas there too at one point. That was actually kind of an old school jab at Arkansas, because that's something Longhorn fans, that's an old rivalry. I don't really know much about the Arkansas rivalry. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, it's before my time.
Yeah, because your grandparents weren't born yet.
Yeah, that's an old school thing. But there was some terms that he dropped that he was speaking to the old, and I think the way he described that rivalry is actually one of those ways. That's how I've heard old Longhorn fans, older Longhorn fans, because I'm old too, older Longhorn fans. That's how I've heard them refer to and describe that. The vitriol and angst in that Arkansas rivalry. So we'll get to that too coming up a little bit later on, because I think that was one of the better quotes from Sark. But let's get to some of the audio here. First let's get to Sark talking about, and this was during the opening statement, if you will. This is Sark talking about the coaches on the staff and the playing style, two things that he thinks is going to give him an advantage going into the SEC.
As far as our coaching staff goes, one thing that we have going for us is coordinator continuity. I've had the same coordinators in 4 years now here at Texas, with Kyle Flood on the offensive line, offensive coordinator, Pete Kwiatkowski as our defensive coordinator, and then Jeff Banks as our special teams coordinator. From an offensive perspective, if you haven't ever seen us play, we believe in balance. We believe in trying to make it hard on the defense with multiple personnel groupings, formations, motion shifts. We love to run the football. We love to play action pass. We love to RPO. That's not going to change. Okay, so if you're wondering how's it going to look with the new headset communication thing, we aren't going to change. We're going to do what we do. We're just going to try to do it better than we did a year ago. Okay, defensively, I think one thing that we've really tried to evolve into, we've really tried to commit ourselves to stopping the run, and I think that showed a year ago. We have to be better in pass defense, and there's two ways to get better in pass defense. One, got to cover people better, right? You got to guard people better. You have to have people that can guard them. You also have to have the schemes to guard those people, but you have to have a better way to affect the quarterback. And so we've really tried to invoke that into our team of how do we create more of a pass rush to affect the quarterback, which I think we've improved upon this year, and we'll see the benefits of that. And then on special teams, we're an aggressive special teams unit. We try to go block the kick. If we're not going to block the kick, we're going to try to return it for a touchdown. That's just the way we operate. And Coach Banks does a great job with that, and looking forward to another great year. And when you have depth on your team like we have right now, that's when your special teams can really start to rise up, because we try to play our best players on special teams. When you've got multiple good players, now that depth can permeate to special teams. And so we think we're going to be even better on teams than we've been in the past, and we've been pretty good. And in the end, for our team, we have to be mentally and physically tough. And that's the way we preach. That's what we teach. That's the way we work. That's the way we work in the off season. That'll never change. And for any of you who have ever been to Austin, Texas in July, and you start walking in DKR and running in DKR at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you better be mentally and physically tough. And that's what our guys are doing right now.
All right, there you go. A couple of things to unpack there before we move on to the next one. He's taught when he recognized, first of all, pass defense is an issue. First time all offseason he's done it. We talked about it on the show.
Yeah.
For some reason, after the spring game and in offseason interviews, when he's talking about what the team needs to improve on, what are the potential issues for the team, what could derail the team, he never brings up pass defense. It's almost like he either doesn't want to talk about it, or he doesn't see it as an issue because he assumes that it will improve next season because of the upgrades and bringing in Johnny Nance and things of that nature, which I potentially. So I'm glad he recognized finally the pass defense got to improve. That's a big part of it. And they're recruiting coverage specialists now, and they're recruiting more versatile athletes in the back end. That'll help long term, but right now that's a separate discussion. Also, he talked about their continuity with the coaching staff. Texas is one of 4 teams in the country that return head coach, OC, DC, special teams coach, strength and conditioning coach, and a multi-year starting quarterback. There's only 4 teams in the country that have that much continuity at the top, and they are one of the 4. The others are Utah, Oklahoma State, and Ole Miss, actually. So give Ole Miss some credit there. And he's also said that this is the deepest and the most talented team that he's ever had. And if that's the case, then of course your special teams is going to be better. But considering you just had 11 players drafted, bold statement to say that this is your most talented team, but that's the way Sark genuinely feels. That is also really good sign for Longhorn fans. All right, next cut here is Sark talking about really now kind of the expectations, and really now the expectations that the team has set for itself. And this actually is I love this. Is actually one of my favorite quotes from Sark and one of my favorite moments from Sark from SEC Media Days.
At the University of Texas, the standard is the standard. Okay. Part of that standard is our culture. All right. Our culture is what makes us who we are. We take a lot of pride in our culture. We pour into our culture. We are a very connected group. We love one another. We work with one another. And that's not going to change. Okay. But at the University of Texas, part of the standard being the standard is competing for championships. I'm up here talking about football, but it's at every sport. It's at every level. And so regardless of the conference, and that's to take nothing away from the SEC, our goal is to come into this conference and compete for a conference championship. It is what it is. That's why you go to the University of Texas. So that won't change. And I want to leave you with this. When I took the job at the University of Texas, and I walked into DKR, and one of the first signs I saw was a quote that I've put up now in my office that I'll always and forever hold on to. The pride and winning tradition at the University of Texas shall not be entrusted to the weak nor the timid. And that's not going to change now that we've changed conferences. We're going to go attack this thing. Like I said, we've got a ton of respect for this conference and the teams in this conference, but we're going to go attack it, and we're going to go try to win a conference championship, because that's why we're at the University of Texas. So we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to renewing rivalries with Texas A&M and with Arkansas. We're one of the few schools with realignment that has benefited from realignment, that we've gotten some rivalries back. And so we're looking forward to those things as well. And it's going to be a great year. We're looking forward to it. Thank you. Hook 'em.
And that's Sark. The standard is the standard. You guys have heard me say that too. And by the way, I didn't make that up. I got that from older generations of Longhorn players who said it to me. He's been talking to older generations of Longhorn fans. That was him speaking to a generation that was used to a certain level of play, a certain competitive level, a certain standard, and that had dropped off lately in the last 15 years, and maybe the the most recent generation of Longhorn fans that they're not used to that standard. Now, I always said, "What? Don't let your expectations affect the standard. The standard is the standard.
Yes.
You can have a good year. Don't mean you reach the standard. Last year they did. Yeah, last year they met the standard, but the standard is the standard. So he's been talking to somebody because he hadn't used that before.
No, and that's the
new.
word. That's the word that I heard Quinn use.
That's new.
I'm pretty sure I heard Jade use it as well.
Oh yeah,
that
no doubt.
that there is definitely in these meetings, in the conversations, that is not something that the first 3 years we heard the standard at Texas and this. Because I don't think he wanted to put that on them.
They weren't meeting it. Yeah,
they weren't meeting it. So he didn't want to be like, hey, by the way, for 3 years, you have not met the standard.
Great pep talk, coach. Exactly. No, you're right. That's too much. I agree. That's overwhelming for young guys who are trying to bring the program back to prominence. But I remember being in that position.
Yeah.
I remember being in that position. I was like, yeah, man, just so you know, 9 wins is not the standard. The standard is championships. I won 11 games and didn't meet the standard.
Yeah.
That's how I know the standard is really high. We won 11 games 2 years in a row. And it's like, man, that was a great season. Didn't meet the standard, though, just so you know. Like, damn. But that's the standard because the standard is the standard.
Yeah.
I can't get upset about that.
No, I mean,
I can't get upset that truly went in none of my 4 years that I truly meet the standard, which is, and I guess, competing for a Big 12 title, if you want to say that. But I don't know. Big 12 South Championship to me is not the standard. Right?
No, I mean, winning Big 12 titles could be.
Winning Big 12 titles. What they did last year. That's what I'm saying. Winning. So it you can't change the standard. Don't let your expectation affect it. That's a new mantra for them. They hadn't used it before. I agree with Patrick. It would have been too heavy to throw on them early. That they weren't meeting the standard last year. Now that they've met it, hey guys, just so you know, that's it. Everything else that we've done is actually not the standard. It's good. It's really good. And we are getting better and it's progress.
Yeah.
But still doesn't mean you met the standard. Love it.
No,
Great job, sorry.
And it's big going into SEC, walking into SEC and telling everybody at the SEC, our standard is being the best. That's it. So it doesn't matter where we are, what we're doing. Our standard is playing for national championships and play like that's where we want to be. That's what our standard is.
Yeah.
We just fired our baseball coach who was doing just fine because he wasn't doing great.
Exactly. He was a really good baseball coach, not championship caliber.
He wasn't giving the standard.
That's the standard.
And so, I noticed that as I was cutting up the audio, as I heard it multiple times, and it wasn't the media saying it.
No, it was them.
It was always them. It was always brought up by them. And so you're like, this is something on the van ride at least, but probably in locker rooms and everything else. Yep. They've been discussing, hey man, we need to. This is what. Hey, the people who are donating the NIL, that's what they're talking about. The fans, that's what they're talking about. Yeah. So we need to be talking about
it. And it has to be a reality once you get close that you can have that discussion with your teammates. And like I said, I remember when we started having discussion 01, 02. All right, the standard is, man, 11 wins is great. That's actually not the standard. 11 wins in a championship, and competing for championships. That is the standard, and it's really high. Some people would say it's unrealistic, but the standard is the standard. I've had several rants about that, and like I said, that was passed down to me. Now that they met it, somebody probably gave it to Sark his first year. And Sark was like, I'm not putting that on my players. Hell no. That's way too much. No, not yet. Wait till I get this thing rolling, and then I'll let them know, hey guys, great job. Not the standard.
Yeah.
This is the standard. And last year, since they all experienced it, he can go, remember that experience? That's it. It was hard, wasn't it? Remember the adversity? Remember getting hit in the mouth? Remember us as a team growing? Remember the trials and tribulations we went through? Remember how the hard work we went through? Remember the long days and the late nights and getting up early and the process and all the grind we put in as a team? We got to do that again and do it better.
Yeah.
And double down on the commitment.
Yeah. That's now your base level.
Yeah.
That you need to achieve more than that, but that needs to be every year we get to that, and then you need to be better than that some years. That's That's the standard.
Standard. I would say that he was speaking to older generations of Longhorn, I think players actually. I think guys like myself and Longhorn fans who remember those glory days. Like I said, and Mac Brown was killing it, and half the time wasn't meeting the standard. Mac Brown was winning 10 games. Longhorn fans were like, yeah, but you didn't beat Oklahoma and didn't compete for a championship, so no. Good job, but no. That's how high the standard is. Yeah. It is a ridiculously high one. Okay, I love that quote. It's one of my favorites. My favorite moment for Sark at the SEC Media Days. He was asked by Kirk Bowles, formerly of the Austin American Statesman, now with the Houston Chronicle, and I've been saying this for a while. Black Stradamus been predicting this. He's going to expand that wide receiver rotation. He has to, otherwise he won't be able to get wide receivers here anymore via the transfer portal and via recruiting, because he won't be able to promise them, oh no, you'll play. They need to see that you can stockpile all that talent and then, weaponize it all and maximize it all. So here's Kirk Bowles asking Sark, hey, are you going to expand that wide receiver rotation?
I think it's probably twofold, Kurt. We are gonna play more receivers. I think the length of this season, and because of not having all of the rapport with Quinn, some of that I have to feel out as games go. It is a very talented room for sure. And we've got 3 great transfers. When you talk about Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, 3 really experienced, good football players that came from good programs. We had signed a very good class the year before with Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore, and Ryan Niblett. And then with this incoming class, I think it's pretty fair to say Ryan Wingo's a really good player for us. And so to think that I've got 7 quality players there, now, is it going to be a 7-man rotation? That'll bear itself out. But I do think we'll play more players than we have in the past. We'll rotate more guys than we probably have in the past. And then as we work ourselves through the season, when you start playing this many games, I'd love to tell you we're not going to get injuries. Injuries are going to occur. So we're going to play more players probably earlier in the season than we have, just because you don't have some of that experience that we lost from a year ago. But this isn't a lack of talent. This group is very talented, and by far and away our deepest receiver core that we've had in 4 years.
He's right about that. It is a deep receiving core. And my other prediction, not only because he's confirmed you're going to expand the receiving rotation, and honestly, for him, I don't know if that means 4, because usually it's been 3. I don't know if that means 4, that means 5, if that means 6 different guys. Ryan Wingo's going to play. Ryan Wingo is going to play. I think that's based. I think, honestly, the underlying tone is that Ryan Wingo's going to play, y'all. He's going to play. And he's going to play a lot for a freshman. Not saying he's going to start, but he's going to play a lot for a freshman. And I think the question is, on top of Cook, Wingo, Bond, Bolden, and Golden, that 5, that's, I think, the bulk of your rotation. DeAndre Moore, does he throw in 6? Is DeAndre Moore, he likes DeAndre Moore a lot. Is that 6 guys in the rotation? That would definitely be the most that Sark has had. And if that's the case, I wonder... you know what? Can we play cut 16 just really quick before we get out of here? Because this actually relates. Because I think Sark may break out his red package, which he had at Alabama when he had the 4 first-round wide receivers. He had Ruggs, he had Judy, he had Waddle, he had Devontae Smith, and he had a red package. It's just one back, 0 tight ends, 10 personnel, and he would just blitz the opposing team with speed and put all those first-round wide receivers on the field. And that was a matchup advantage or disadvantage for the defense somewhere, because you don't have 4 DBs that can cover 4 first-round wide receivers in college. You just don't. Nobody does. So all you got to do is just find the mismatch. And I think you may get some of that sprinkled in this year. Sark, probably less than 1% of his snaps, and I don't even know if it's that. It might be talking about 0.5% of his snaps have been in 10 personnel. He doesn't use it a lot at all. But every year he adds a little something to the recipe. The pony package, the Big 11, Big 12 package. Here's Sark talking about the evolution of the offense, and usually it's about him trying to maximize an embarrassment of riches at a specific position. Had a lot of talent at running back with Rojo and Bijan. Why not put them both on the field at the same time? Also, Keelan Robinson. Hell, we'll put all three of them on the field at the same time. You got an embarrassment of riches at offensive line. Why not add an extra offensive lineman to the mix? So the Big 11, Big 12 package with 6 O linemen, that comes about. So I think the trend is embarrassment of riches at one position. Sark finds a creative, innovative way to utilize it. And now it's wide receiver. So to me, it automatically goes to, I'll just put more of them on the field. That's what he's done. How do I do that? Here's Sark talking about the evolution of his offense in the SEC.
Well, I think, without telling Coach Norvell at Colorado State what we're going to do in week 1, part of it is we always try to stay on the cutting edge. I never want to get stale offensively. And I know what I said earlier, we're going to be who we are. But with that comes all of the subtle tweaks and things and formations and motions and personnel groupings and how do you group people the right way and to take advantage of it. Part of that is trying to play your best players. All right. Part of that is how do we tax the defense? And so we do have a very versatile offensive team. The fact that we've got very versatile runners. We got versatile tight ends. The addition of Amari Niblack has been great. Juan Davis, who I've been so impressed with coming out of spring ball and this summer. Gunnar Helm, we found out a lot about him when JT went down last year. We use an extra tackle at tight end some. So we try to do a lot of things to people to make them prepare for it. And then in game, what are we going to call that game that maybe they didn't practice quite as much, or, hey, they have a deficiency here, let's go attack that a little bit more. So I'm not trying to avoid the question, but sometimes it's we implement an offense and then we tap into different aspects of it from week to week that we think, behoove us to be successful.
There you go. So I think in short, he's going to bring in that 10 personnel package. That's been the trend for him. And by the way, all those little cheat codes and hacks that he brought up, that's what I track for you guys. That's what I give you. That's what he adds to the offense. He's got a base offense, but then he just keeps adding little things to the recipe and the formula, and year by year. And that's kind of what I track most of the time. All right, let's talk about, we'll get to behind the Burners curtain, and we'll talk about Texas' biggest offense, or most problematic issue on offense. And Sark was asked about it finally, and the answer that he gives, it it confirms my hypothesis about what has been, or at least this season, what has been Texas' biggest issue this past season, which is red zone offense. And my hypothesis, I gave it to you guys plenty of time. Sark confirmed it at SEC Media Days. We'll get to that on the other side when we go behind the burnt orange curtain right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to go behind the burnt orange curtain, talk some Texas football. One of the things that Sark said at SEC Media Days that caught some attention when he was asked about the Arkansas rivalry this quote came from Brett McMurphy. He said, renewing the rivalry with Arkansas, they hate Texas more than they like themselves. That is also something, if you talk to old school Longhorn fans who were obviously around when the Southwest Conference was at its peak, in Texas and Arkansas were a heated rivalry and playing every year. That's something that they would that's how they would describe, something they would say to describe the Texas Arkansas rivalry and the way Arkansas fans felt and how really that vitriol and angst. And so I think Sark's been, he's been well versed now. He's been talking to some old school Longhorn fans or some old school Longhorn players and coaches, and they've been giving him the cliff notes on whether you're talking about the standard or whether you're talking about, how because you got to play the Aggies too, right? He don't know much about the Texas A&M rivalry, so I'm sure he's gotten the breakdown and a little bit of the history of the rivalry and some of the peaks and why it's such a heated rivalry, and what the kind of the story behind it is, just so now he can be well versed in it. So because he's submersed in it, immersed in it, I should say, and submerged in it, he can now, fully appreciate it. And this guy's been in a lot of rivalries, right? He's been in the Apple Cup. He talks about that. He's coached in the Iron Bowl. He's coached obviously in the Texas OU game. So he understands that they're different, that the rivalry games, they are different. Like anything can happen in rivalry games because of the emotion that both teams are playing with, and also depending on that environment that obviously you're going to, the environments are way more hostile because it's palpable. Whether you're talking about Texas OU and it being a neutral site, or whether you're talking about Texas A&M or Arkansas, which he learned, by the way, he learned that in Texas first year. It's different when you have to travel to traveling on the road is tough anyway, but when you got to travel to a rival, different story altogether. I've done it. It's, trust me, that's why everybody's saying, and I've said it too, that Texas A&M game this year is going to be bigger than Texas OU, and I think the environment is going to be way more hostile. So, I mean, even that Arkansas game, that's probably close to it that Texas had in 2021. Arkansas they don't conduct themselves in a very they don't conduct themselves in a very courteous fashion. I think the Aggies will be more courteous. Aggies are actually have some class, but in terms of how hostile they'll make the actual game, they'll make that style. Arkansas, I always say you got to kind of watch your back outside the stadium and in the stadium. You ain't really got to watch your back with Aggies. Aggies just gonna make you uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it's do weird stuff.
The one with the Arkansas game is an 11 a.m. game too.
Yeah, that's right. That's good. That's good.
It takes away a little bit.
It's
not a nighttime game. Yeah, last one was night, and so it takes away a little bit of. Hey man, we've been drinking all day, and now we've been drinking all morning, but it's not.
Oh yeah, they gonna still cover their little tips. It's Arkansas.
Yeah,
but but it's good that somebody's talking to Sark about these rivalries, and so that he doesn't get, and he won't, because like I said, he's been a part of some great rivalries. But it's good to know the history of them. It's good. I'm glad that Sark, and Sark's a college football junkie, so Sark was probably he probably didn't need anybody to verse him in. He probably wouldn't study it on his own. But I'm glad he's speaking to that generation of Longhorn fans that were part of that rivalry, because I wasn't. I don't even know anything about, but I've heard them describe the rivalry in that manner before, and hearing Sark say it on the stage, that brings me some joy as a Longhorn fan. Something else that brought me joy is what he said when he was asked about the red zone offense. And you guys know I've been talking about red zone offense for a while. Texas went from being a top 5 red zone. And literally, that was the question. I mean, that you went from being a top 5 red zone offense in 2021 to being 120th in touchdown position in red zone. And ironically, I believe it was an Arkansas guy. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was a guy from Arkansas, because right before that is when Sark makes the comment, actually. Matter of fact, I'll go. We'll go pull that because I believe it's right before that when he makes the comment about Arkansas, and the guy says, "I agree with that," and I'm an Arkansas grad. And then he asked him about red zone offense. I believe that's exactly how it goes, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, he asked him just how I would have asked the question. Hey, you were top 5 in 2021, and you were 120th in touchdown percentage in the red zone in 2023. What is your plan to remedy this issue? Was it a point of emphasis in the offseason? What did you learn about studying this issue? My theory, you guys have heard me say it plenty of times. Bijan Rojo hangover. That's the only way I can describe it. Nothing else really makes sense to me as to why you would have that steep of a decline in your red zone offense and with all the talent that you had on offense last year. And the second thing I said it's an identity crisis. They don't know who they want to be in the red zone. You got to figure out who you are in the red zone because the defense actually has a lot of more advantages in the red zone. I don't have to worry about covering the deep ball. Your playbook, right? It shrinks in the red zone because you don't have as much space, and I can be more aggressive in the red zone as a defender because I can make up for not for a mistake, or I can make up for a miscalculation because there's not a lot of field to defend. Everything happens faster in the red zone. And I think that actually benefits a lot of the defense too. So it's one of those things where, I think you got to figure out who you are and who you want to be in the red zone. And then you have to commit to that identity. Remember, Texas was using jumbo package. Sometimes they were using trick plays in the red zone. Sometimes they want to spread out in the red zone. Sometimes they're thinking players, not plays, and they're going to go to A.D. Mitchell and J.T. Sanders in the red zone. They're going to be their weapons in the red zone. He never really could figure out his identity. So listen to what Sark says, at least his hypothesis is about the main issues they had in the red zone last season.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a byproduct of a few things. We lost Bijan Robinson. Anytime you lose a top 10 draft pick at running back, that's going to affect some of your play. We lost Roschon Johnson too, who's a great player. And those two guys and the Wildcat aspect and some of the things that we like to do with him there. And then last year comes around and every year is different. And we missed some opportunities that I thought we could have taken advantage of that could dramatically change that number. The play caller, me, probably maybe at times tried too hard and different things. And so you just get back to the drawing board. And like every year, you have things in areas that the things you want to work on, you want to place an emphasis on. And we've definitely done that. And I think we've got enough versatility in our offense to be a lot more effective in the red area because we're going to need to be. We work way too hard to get ourselves all the way down there and be so efficient between the 20s not to put the ball in the end zone.
The man he studied it. He's got all the info, all the data. He came up with the same hypothesis I did. It's like, man, I just think it's not having Bijan Rojo. I just think it was so easy to put some Bijan on it with a side of Rojo every damn time. Just give it to those guys. And they were so successful. Why would I come up with that'd be like Arthur Smith. And then you working, you're working harder, not smarter. It's like, no, just give it to that guy. That guy, Rojo's great, and Bijan's even better in the red zone. Give it to those guys. And first thing Sark says, hey, what happened in the red zone? Not having Bijan and Rojo, man. It really, and this guy's a brilliant play caller. He's saying for him, it distorted his perception of their red zone offense. He thought it was a better red zone offense than it was too. He lost Bijan and Rojo, and then he realized, oh man, this is a lot hard. Even with the talent I have, it's tough because in the red zone, the defense has a lot of advantages. A lot of the advantages you have between the 20s, you ain't got them in the red zone. In the red zone, the defender, I think a lot of the times they become way more aggressive. And like I said, Sark's offense is built on space and creating space and maximizing space. You don't have it in the red zone. You got to be a different guy. You got the biggest offensive line in the Big 12, still couldn't bully ball your way into the red zone, into the end zone. So I'm sure he's figured out some solutions. I mean, hell, I gave you guys all my thoughts on what they need to do in the red zone. All the research that I did, and I went and looked at all their plays and the most successful plays, whether you're talking about yards per play, whether you're talking about success rate, conversion rate in the red zone. And essentially, I think they need more misdirection in the red zone. Out of their top 10 most successful concepts in the red zone, 6 of them used misdirection in some way, form, or fashion. Anything more misdirection and more RPOs in the red zone. Your RPO game works really well in the red zone. There are just some, I think, basic things that Texas can do better in the red zone. I think they should use, I've been saying this for a while, more two-back sets in the red zone, more pony package. Sounds, crazy, but it is their most effective, most explosive, most efficient personnel grouping. And if you go to the NFL and look at the best offenses in the red zone, a lot of them are from that Shanahan tree, and they use a lot of two-back sets, a lot of two wide receiver sets. We're talking about Miami, whether you're talking about San Francisco, whether you're talking about the Green Bay Packers are also in that conversation over the last 3 or 4 years that they have really high touchdown percentage rates in the red zone. So he's already from that tree, or at least he's a couple of branches removed from that tree, and he studies that tree. He admits that every offseason he goes to study that Shanahan tree. I think he should go study Mike McDaniel with Miami, because he uses a lot of two-back sets, a lot of pony package, a lot of speed on the field, which is also what Sark likes, and he is great in the red zone. And so is my boy Shano. They're great in the red zone, also using more two tailback sets than anybody else in the league. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's like Nick Saban says that, and Nick Saban said this 2 years ago before he retired, you don't practice against it. And so my defenders don't know how to defend it. He literally said, now this is not the case in the NFL, but these are the same guys going to the NFL, his Nick Saban's defenders. He said he had a play where the opposing team lined up in I formation and his players didn't know what to do. He had to call a timeout. They didn't know what to do. It was like, I don't recognize this. Like, it's I formation. It's I formation, man. I know. I'm sorry, you don't recognize I formation. You play the game. Nobody lines up in the game on I formation anymore. No, they don't, and nobody practices against it anymore. So, what an advantage it is for you when you line up in two tailback sets, and the defense goes, "Well, we don't see this ever. Actually, we never see this. I don't even really know what to do." And then you start spreading them out and moving things around with pre-snap motions and shifts. So that's just some of my ideas. I know he's probably got the same ideas. But we're on the same page. that was initially what I threw out there. It's the reason that the red zone offense took such a precipitous decline in productivity. And Sark agrees. Post Bijan and Rojo hangover. And honestly, it's Sark. He's a little all over the place, identity-wise, in the red zone. There's no idea who he wants to be in the red zone. I love that man because he's forthcoming and honest. I mean, I'm just being honest about what I found. He was honest too, like, yeah, life is hard without Bijan and Rojo. You damn right it is. I mean, and that's the only thing that made sense. Guys, they had a second-round running back, they had NFL tight end, 3 wide receivers drafted to the NFL, biggest offensive line in the league, and a quarterback's going to be drafted in the first round. Why the hell would you be bad in the red zone? Like, why? And a brilliant play caller. Why? Why, when you get down in the red zone, are you less efficient and ineffective? 120th in touchdowns. Basically, it's a roll the dice. Half the time you score touchdowns in the red zone with that talent. See, it doesn't make sense. There's no one thing you can point to. So that's why you got to go back to the Bijan and Rojo. It's factors that are now kind of outside of your control. And I believe for Sark, it hampered and handicapped his development as a play caller in the red zone because he had such, he had such an easy cheat code in those two guys. So he never really developed his red zone acumen with this team either. I think that's what he worked on in the offseason. I put money on it. All right, we come back. We got a topic for the Big Fat Poll today, and we'll have the musically themed day of the week. All that and more right here on the Rodcast, right here on the Horn, featuring Patrick Davis. Coming right back. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Local and Rod Babers here. Austin is a great city. It's one of the reasons people keep moving to Austin, and I don't blame them. I love Austin, made it home myself, and as the city continues to grow and thrive, one of the reasons that traffic is bad is because it is growing and thriving. But you'll recognize that many of the landmarks around the city are also becoming iconic landmarks, and many of those were actually built by the construction and the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local 482. They're part of the growth of this great city. They've constructed great monuments and iconic landmarks in this city, like a DKR Stadium and the Pennybacker Bridge. And right now they're constructing another big project right here in Central Texas, and they need your help. They're hiring over 3,000 people for this big project. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. And right now it's a great time for you to become a member of Ironworkers Local Unions 482. If you're looking for a refreshing career change or an exciting employment opportunity, or you want a new challenge, or you want to feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local 482. And right now it's the perfect time to do it. So go online today and apply at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org.
Back on the Rodcast here on a Thursday morning, and that means it is a new theme Thursday. And the theme of the show today, the moon landing, was 55 years ago this weekend. So we are going to be playing songs about the moon all show long. As celebrate one of the biggest achievements in American history was winning the race to the moon in 1969. July 20th, 1969 is when they got to the moon. So we will be celebrating that with with some songs about the moon today here on a new theme Thursday. Time to get to the big fat poll of the day. Text line's open 512-447-3776. And then you can also hit us up on X at the Horn ATX. We'll get that posted up here in just a minute as well. But let's get to the big fat poll of the day.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Big fat poll of the day today. A lot of the conversation at Big 12 Media Days for Texas was other teams and some other schools asking about what the players wanted to experience going on the road in the SEC and what the road on the SEC was going to look like, and road games in general. A lot of questions about that throughout media days. whether they were in the breakouts or whatever situation, a lot of questions to the players from Texas about the road games in the SEC versus we talked about it yesterday about how the second smallest stadium in the SEC is bigger than the second biggest in the Big 12. So it is a different road environment. But that leads us to Big Fat Poll of the Day, which is which true road game this season scares you the most for Texas? Which true road game? There's only 4. There's only 4.
Let's say it's not many. I think it's going to be overwhelmingly the same one.
But I mean, I don't know if it is because one of them's not SEC.
That's true. Yeah, I think it's going to be. That's what I say. I still think it'll be the same one.
So your choices are Michigan, Arkansas, Vanderbilt. We all know that's going to win. Vanderbilt's the scariest, and then Texas A&M.
I think the Aggies are going to win 80% of that vote.
I think they will, but the reason I phrased it scares you is because I don't know how many Longhorns are going to admit that they're scared about going to Cal Field. I just don't know how many are going to admit it.
Well, that's a good point. That's fair. The Michigan thing is because the Longhorn fans out there, they can accept losing to Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to lose, but they're the defending champions. And Longhorn fans, I know that is something that they can accept. If the Texas loses to Michigan, I don't think Longhorn fans will be that upset. Texas loses to A&M. End of the season, after not playing them since 2011, the Longhorn fans are going to be irate. They're going to be upset about that. They'll be way more upset, and they will not be reasonable or rational, and they will not even if it's just the Aggies are good. They say the Aggies are good, and actually, you can justify losing to them. Longhorn fans are not going to take that loss well. They'll take the loss to Michigan.
Yeah,
they'll take that.
Oh yeah,
they'll be classy about it and cool, calm, and collected, and rational fans. They lose at A&M. Nope, all that goes right out the window.
That's true.
I'm telling you right now, that's going right out the window because that game, basically, yeah. And when we put out the poll, well, we didn't put out the poll. We read the poll from Burnt Orange Nation yesterday about asking who would you rather lose to, Oklahoma A&M, and I think basically it was like no, overwhelmingly, the fans like no, they'd rather lose to Oklahoma. They don't want to lose to A&M.
Yes,
they can't. They can't. No, that will not sit well. This year, you got to beat the Aggies. You got to beat all those rivals, and now you got more than ever. But man, that Aggie one, it just means more this year.
It does. It's going to mean a lot. It's going to be a lot. But that's what we'll see. We'll see who people say scares them the most. Michigan, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, or Texas A&M. The 4 true road games. You only got to go on the road. True road games 4 times. You go. I mean, you have the Dallas game against OU. Yeah. But true road games, there's only 4, and one of them is Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they got the weakest home field advantage in the SEC.
That is the one stadium that's I think they have a 40,000. Yeah, they have like a 40,000 seat stadium. So that's the one that's small. So, yeah. But I can't imagine that one's going to get a lot of votes. But other than that,
yeah. The question was, would you rather beat OU or A&M next year? By Burnt Orange Nation, and 75% of y'all was like, no, we'd rather beat A&M than Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Longhorn fans don't want to lose that game this year.
No.
There'll be a time down the line where it won't matter as much, but this year.
But this is the thing is, I don't know if I know people don't want to lose it. The question is, do people think they're going to lose it? Or do people just say, no, we don't think A&M's that good. We think Texas is going to be better. And so it may be, we want to win that game, but I'm not scared about it because we don't think they're going to be that good.
Could be.
Now, I know me and you know that they're probably going to be better than some people think. But if you look at what their past history has been in the last few years, you probably wouldn't look at that game and go, them or defending national champions. Which one scares me more?
Very true. But what rivals
I'm with you.
And Texas hasn't been traveling to
and look, forever. And you can say which one you mentioned Texas, You mentioned earlier
they don't travel to a rival.
No.
Texas, was last time Texas doesn't travel to going to the Arkansas game. That was one of the last time they traveled to a rival. Texas, because of the Texas OU game and how unique it is, they don't have to travel to rivals very often. And we just talked about the angst and anima and vitriol that rivals have for each other. And not at a neutral site, you got to go to that heated rivalry. So you got to do 2 of them. Arkansas, I'm not worried about because you're so much better than them. But A&M, and them's got some talent.
No, I agree. But I will say, if you want to throw in scared, just simply scared for your life, Arkansas is in that conversation as well.
Oh yeah, if we're talking about literally scared, like actually, scared. Yes, no, then it's easily Arkansas. You mean like something might hit you in the head while you're walking with your family? Yes, they call it Vietnam for a reason. All right, we'll come back. That's a good question though. You're right, because you could go. There are definitely two ways you could go. Hell, old school person might even go, like you said, literally, if you're going to travel as a fan, that Arkansas game, it's a watch your back kind of game. All right, we'll come back. We'll get more into the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. We got some more sound and audio that we're going to hear from Quinn Ewers and Jade and Kevin Banks, and also more from Steve Sarkisian as well. We'll get some NFL discussion in there, some NFL news, notes, and nuggets. All of that coming up right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday, and that's my man Patrick, our co-host. He comes up with all the musically themed days of the week, but that's when he comes up with a special creative one just for every Thursday. And this one is a shout out to the moon landing. Actually, today was it would be the anniversary
this
of
weekend,
the moon landing.
This
weekend, sorry.
This
weekend will be the anniversary of the moon landing. So I and Patrick throwing out some jams that all reference the moon in some way, form, or fashion in the lyrics. So we appreciate him and all of his work. Also, he comes up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. This one could be especially challenging to some Longhorn fans out there, depending on how you want to interpret the question. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Big Fat Poll of the day. Which true road game scares you the most next season for Texas?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's A&M for me. I think it's going to be A&M overwhelmingly. Can't lose that game. I just think Longhorn fans, the way I'm looking at it, worst case scenario for both situations, you're going to lose these games. If you lose to, you're not going to lose to Arkansas, by the way. You're just too much. You're way better than Arkansas. I don't see that one. And remember, you are avenging that loss you had in 2021, which was one of the most embarrassing losses that Sark's had in his career. Sark's going to be ready for that game. All right, guarantee you that, no doubt. And like I said, Arkansas, there's talk that they may fire their coach before the season's over. And there's some people that are already looking to upgrade their coaching staff. But anyway, so you're way better than them. Vanderbilt, you're so much better than Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's at the bottom of their bottom feeder in the SEC. That was nothing to worry about. The Michigan game, defending champions, that defense is going to be legit. Best corner in college football, best D tackle duo in college football. And then the Aggies, who have a lot of talent. We know that because they've been recruiting like a juggernaut the last couple of years. But a lot of folks have left, but they still actually meet the criteria to be in the blue chip ratio. We've talked about this. More than 50% of their roster, blue chips, 4- and 5-star recruits. And Texas will play 5 such teams this year. Michigan, Oklahoma, of course, in there. Georgia is in there. A&M, and then I think Florida actually makes it. So that's 5 teams. Hell, they only played 5 total in Sark's first 3 years at Texas, and you're gonna play 5 in just this year alone. And the Aggies are, in that conversation as a really talented team. There's some people that think Connor Wigman, if he stays healthy, is a first-round pick. We saw that in Matt Miller's mock draft. So first-round pick, the wide receiver, and the passing game is underrated. Remember, I went through that with you guys. They've been pretty productive. They're going to have some dogs on defense, and we'll see if the offensive line can come together and pass protect long enough. That'll be, I think, a big factor in the health and durability of Connor Wigman. But I don't know. For me, it's the Aggies, but I remember the Texas A&M rivalry. And like I said, I'm thinking about how Longhorns fans would deal with the loss between Michigan and Texas A&M, and they would not deal with the Texas A&M loss very well. The Michigan one, and when it is during the season too, that would also hurt. And one is an SEC play, and one is a rival as compared to Michigan, which Michigan's not a rival. That's a fun non-conference game, but it's not going to affect your conference, standing, and it's not a rival, so it doesn't hurt as much.
It doesn't, but I can tell you there's a part of it in me with the Michigan game that I know what the Alabama game meant to Texas last year. Mm-hmm. And it's a big game of a tone setter of if you lose it, you can still feel good, but you have that unease in your stomach the rest of the season of like, oh, I don't know if we're that team now. I don't know if we still have that. And maybe it was because we're a young team and we got, Quinn's got to get there. But there's a little bit of more unease that if you win that game, you feel pretty good going into the SEC and going into the rest of the season. And not just us as fans, but the team can walk in and say, no, we lost to Washington. That was the anomaly, was the Washington loss. But we're the better team. We're going to go run this now. We're going to go play we're about to go win some games. Versus if you lose that and you go, okay, now we're in the last 3 games we played, we've lost 2.
No, you're right. I mean, it definitely gives you a lot of momentum. I just think that ultimately, if you're talking about the fear that Longhorn had, the fear would be about losing. Yeah. Like, to me, that's fear, right? They think about, oh, man, the fear is like, oh, man, what if we lose to Michigan? What if we lose to the Aggies? So I think they'll be motivated by that. But it's a good question. It really is. Because Michigan's defense, that is kind of what I fear as a Longhorn fan. That defense, and Quinn Ewers on the road against that defense. They got Wink Martindale's an NFL defensive coordinator, get the best cornerback. I mean, trying to think of the last time Texas played a corner this good. It's been a while. I mean, some people say the corners from Alabama were that good. No, Will Johnson's better. They have the best D tackle duo, basically what Texas had last year in Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. Think about that. That's what Michigan has. They got that. They got the best D tackle duo in the country and the best D tackle there. So that worries me a little. And Wink Martindale, who's a blitz happy, addict. Like he's gonna blitz and come after Quinn from every different angle. And that worries me a little bit too, because Quinn's, we've talked about this, sometimes has had trouble handling pressure. And Wink Martindale is going to bring the pressure. So that if you want to break it down there, almost, from that standpoint, I can justify the Michigan pick too. But for me, it's going to be the Aggie one.
Yeah.
That's the one that I fear the most. Good question there. We'll get that posted to you. Posted up at X, the Horn ATX. You can go check that out. Before we get into we'll get back to some of the other audio too. Speaking of Quinn, we're going to talk about Quinn here because we didn't get into that. But Sark, he talked about Quinn initially there when he was on the stage there at SEC Media Days. And then we heard from Quinn Ewers himself. So we'll get into some of that audio here in this hour. And we'll talk some NFL too when we get into Rod's rant. But first, let's get updated. Let's get educated and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Team USA improved to a 3-0 record after a 105-79 win over Serbia yesterday. Steph Curry led the way early, scoring USA's first 9 points before finishing with 24 on the game. Serbia kept it tight, tying the game at 28 after the first with a buzzer beater, but USA was able to pull away in the second quarter, getting a 14-point lead before half. Bam Adebayo had 17 points, while Anthony Edwards had another good game, scoring 16. Team USA now heads to London for its next warm-up game with South Sudan on Saturday. And in the MLB, teams are getting ready to restart their season tomorrow with the Rangers welcoming the AL-leading Orioles to Arlington, while the Astros are heading to Seattle to take on the Mariners in a series for control of the AL West. And that's your Horn Headlines.
All right, Patrick, thank you for the Horn Headlines. Appreciate those. All right, let's get back to some of the audio, and we also will get to some of your thoughts about the topic for the Big Fat Poll today and some of your responses to that. But let's get back to some of the audio here. Let's start with Sark and Sark's comments about Quinn Ewers and his development and growth as a quarterback. Here is Sark talking about Quinn's progression and what has stood out to him the most about Quinn's development and growth as a player.
I'm really fired up for Quinn. I think back to when he arrived and he was just trying to survive in essence. And we kind of threw him out there and he did some really good things and had some days that weren't his best days. And that's part of developing and growing. And then you go to year two and you watch how he played in some of our biggest moments and when we needed him to be really good. And then coming into this offseason, as much as it's been his physical development, I think his personal development, his emotional development is something that has instilled a ton of confidence in everybody in our building. He walks in that building like he is the starting quarterback of the University of Texas for a top 5 football team. And I think that has permeated throughout our locker room. Even the way I think he's carrying himself today is drastically different than maybe how he carried himself a year ago. And so to me, that is probably the biggest thing. Now, do I want more touchdowns, less interceptions, higher completion percentage? Of course, all those things. But I think those things are a byproduct of his preparation, or a byproduct of the confidence that he exudes and the way he goes to work, his relationship with his teammates. And I give him a lot of credit. When you have, this many new receivers and working with those guys, I was on the grass with them yesterday watching these guys throw the ball around, and it was like it looks as good or better than before. I mean, it's fascinating to watch, but I think that's a byproduct when you have a veteran quarterback.
There you go. I'm glad to hear that they're throwing a lot of throwing sessions with these new wide receivers. And speaking of new, they're going to have the headset communication now. It's going to be interesting. And this is something all the coaches have been asked about, the headset communication. And I think, both Brent Venables and Sark echo the same sentiment about not overwhelming the player who they're communicating with, not giving them too much information, not just rambling in their ear. If you're doing that, then they'll never get any of the insight that you're trying to communicate to them. So here is Sark when he talked about his philosophy. I mean, this is a guy that coached in the NFL, so he knows he's done this already. Here's Sark talking about his philosophy on the new headset communication with Quinn.
Yeah, no, I think naturally the play call, and the thing I try to do, and I think I've been fortunate to having spent time in the NFL and work with Matt Ryan and in those things is sometimes you just don't want to get paralysis by analysis of giving him so much that he can't even operate the play. And so the subtle little reminders are helpful. And maybe that reminder is not for him. Maybe that reminder's for CJ Baxter. Maybe that reminder's for DJ Campbell at right guard. You can get to some of those things that are vital on that play. Maybe it's the reminder of, hey, I don't want to snap this ball until there's 1 second on the clock, okay, because it's third down, and if we have to punt, I don't want – he'll know why I'm saying that to him. So there's little subtle reminders like that. But in the end, it also gives us an opportunity to huddle and maybe give him a few more opportunities to audible on his own, where I don't have to, because I can give him the audible into his headset. Hey, if it's this, check to this, and he can allow to go do those things. And so there's a lot that can go into it. We're fortunate, like I said, when you have a veteran quarterback, it's a little bit easier to manage that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want guys thinking. You want some of the instincts to play a big role. So once guys are, once they're in muscle memory mode, all right, that's what you're practicing for. You want that to take over. You don't want, as he pointed out, the paralysis by analysis, them thinking about things too much. And I think that's why he's pointed out, I'm just giving them reminders. I'm just giving them tidbits. I may give them a check other than the play call, but that's all we're doing. And Brent Venable said the same thing on defense. He said, I don't want to give the guys too much information. You're working with guys who have great instincts. You've been practicing these scenarios, for weeks. Hell, months. If the guys have been there years, they probably well versed in the plays and the technique and the fundamentals of it. And you don't want guys thinking at that point. I mean, that the whole point is you want the guy's instincts to take over. A lot of that is muscle memory for him, and I think that's what Sark is trying to describe there.
I mean, there's a certain factor of you have a veteran quarterback. You don't want to take away some of that veteran learning.
Yep.
And be like, all right, well, we have an advantage because we have someone who's started in our system for 2 years. So we're going to change everything up now and take away a little bit of that progress we've made over the last 2 years. We're just going to take a step back with it because we're going to try something completely different now.
Yep, totally agree. So Sark says that he said that in the opening statement, they were going to do exactly what they were doing. They're just adding the headset communication. So they're still going to have these sideline like poster boards and all that kind of stuff up, I believe. All right, let's hear from Quinn. Quinn was also asked about the headset communication and how he expects that protocol to be laid out. Here is Quinn Ewers talking about the new headset communication.
Yeah, we've used the in-helmet stuff, and it took me about a week to get used to, but after that first week, I really enjoy it, and I really like having Coach Sark in my ear, and I think that's just going to make things a whole lot easier, on my end, and it's going to be good for him to be able to communicate things like what he's seeing in the back end, or what protections he likes in that ordeal, mid-drive, instead of having to call a timeout or whatever it looks like to communicate those things with me.
Yes, I mean, you would think it's going to be a huge advantage for the offense, right? And it could be a huge advantage for the defense too. I mean, if you got a really instinctual player, and if your defensive coordinator sees something right before the snap and notices, oh man, hey, look out for this double slant or look out for this concept. Tell the safety they're likely to run a smash concept, something like that. He can just yell it out right before. Those are kind of the tidbits I guess you could get on defense. But I think even as a defender, it's probably more advantageous to the offense that the quarterback gets to talk to his head coach as he surveys the defense. And you could go with the Bill Belichick model. Remember, Sean McVay basically did this in the NFL, and it was considered revolutionary because nobody else had thought of it, and teams thought he was cheating because he would talk to Jared Goff. They would get lined up very quickly, and he would talk to Jared Goff until they had to cut off the headset communication. And he basically just give Jared Goff all the checks. He give him all the checks. He give him exactly what to do. Hey, you're going to throw to the number 2 read because I guarantee that safety is going to come down and bite on that 6 route. And that number 2 read is going to be wide open behind him. He would just give it to him. And that's why they would line up really quickly so that Jared Goff and basically Sean McVay could talk about the play for 10 to 12 seconds and 10 to 15 seconds. And then he would line up and Jared Goff would look like a all-pro quarterback, right? Then Bill Belichick in the Super Bowl decided, okay, well, when the headset communication has to cut off, right, at the 15-second mark, and Sean McVay is trying to line his guys up quickly so they have 10 to 15 seconds to discuss it before they cut off the headset communication, Bill Belichick changed the play right at the headset communication cutoff. So they had a one-look pre-headset communication cutoff that Sean McVay and Jared Goff could look at and talk about, and as soon as it cut off, basically his guys, they were coached up, and the game plan was for them to shift the look entirely to something different. Front would change, secondary would change, everything different. And then force Jared Goff to have to process everything pre-snap, post-snap on his own. And what did you get in that Super Bowl? No touchdowns from the Rams and Jared Goff, right? Because so you could do that, but are your players sophisticated enough on defense in college to do that every play? Do you trust them not to be out of position and say, all right, guys, this is your assignment, but I need you to do something different until right before the headset communication cuts off, and then shift to your real position. But I need a disguise from every last one of y'all at every level.
Yeah.
I don't know if you trust the guys doing that.
And that only works too is if you allow the clock to get down on the offense. So if you start to try and hurry it up and get up to the line of scrimmage so that you can get everything in and snap the ball with 15 seconds to go on the play clock, then that plan is gone too.
As if you're trying to talk to your player. If you're trying to talk to them, the defense will have time. That's what I'm saying. Like if you're gonna talk to your player to that extent and talk them through it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Then the defense will have time to disguise and shift. But if you don't, if you're just going like college football has been doing, the defense won't have any time for that. So that's kind of what then we'll nullify your advantage by communicating with your quarterback because we'll force you to go fast, take advantage of us and keep us out of disguise. Which is why it makes it tough to disguise in college as opposed to NFL. NFL, they like to huddle up more. You got more chance to disguise it. So it's going to be a chess match. And Sark likes to go fast sometimes in tempo. And what do you do in that situation? If you're going up against a team that, wants to go tempo and kind of mix in a little bit of both. Now they've got key words and key phrases to help them communicate different plays and concepts as opposed to having to talk and having, long, elongated conversation and dialogue. They can just communicate in 4 or 5 words. Oh, when Mike Backer is cheating, we'll call it something else, and we want you to throw to the over route in that case. All right, they'll have some term for it. So I just think overall it's gonna help the offense more. Period. Which everything does, and they know that too. They know that. They know that because they want more points scored. That's part of it. All right, let's get back to some of this audio here from Quinn Ewers. Let's talk about him coming back. This is cut 39, Patrick, please. This is Quinn on him coming back to school. There was a lot of talk that he could have potentially left to go to the NFL, but he wouldn't have been a first-round draft pick. He didn't have a first-round grade last year. He wanted to change that. Here's Quinn talking about his journey coming back to the University of Texas.
Yeah, I think one of the main things for me was just getting more experience under my belt. And, there's kind of a line of demarcation for guys who really have success in the league. And obviously there's some guys that have rare accounts of it not being this way. But, there's a line kind of like at 25 starts that guys, you really see like a jump in how their career went. And I just kind of wanted to give myself a better chance to have a long and successful career in the NFL because I don't want to be a guy that just comes and goes. I want to be somebody who's remembered.
Sounds like he's talking about legacy. Sounds like that's maturity right there. You hadn't heard Quinn talk like that. That's maturity. Him talking about legacy. I want to be somebody that's remembered. That's implying leaving it better than you found it. I like that tone from Quinn. Here's Quinn also talking about the difference in Big 12 and SEC defenses. I thought this was pretty interesting. Here is Quinn. It kind of shows he's been at least studying the difference. I've been trying to, do my own deep dives and giving you guys my analysis on the different trends and the different ecosystems of the Big 12 and the SEC and how Texas is going to make that transition. Here's Quinn talking about it.
Yeah, well, I think one of the main things is just the talent overall. I'm not saying the Big 12 wasn't talented, but I feel like in the SEC there's a lot more first-round guys. And there are a lot good coaches that put them in the position to go to the first round. But I think it means a lot to these guys, and they don't do like Big 12 was kind of a lot of 3-3-5, and some teams in the SEC do it, but some teams don't. So that's going to be an adjustment that we're going to have to take a look at for sure.
Jackson Dart essentially said the same thing. I'm not even sure we played that. I think we did play that audio actually earlier this week. Jackson Dart said the same thing about his transition to the SEC. The SEC is more aggressive and that you get a lot of drop 8. He's talking about that 3-3-5, 3 down, 3 linebackers, and then 5 DBs. But they drop 8 and you rush 3. You get a lot of that in the Big 12. You won't get that in the SEC as much. You won't get that 3 high, 3 safety defense that you see a lot in the Big 12. You won't see that as much in the SEC. Everybody's concerned, and me too, about the chemistry between Quinn and this new wide receiver group. A lot of talent, but as we saw in the spring game, he and Isaiah Bond don't really have that chemistry yet. That was pretty obvious. He and Isaiah Bond did not. They were not on the same page. It just looked clunky. They just didn't. It did not look like they had that continuity. But it was still early. It just got there in the spring game. Nobody cares. But here's Quinn talking about Isaiah Bond and them building that type of chemistry between quarterback and wideout.
Well, I think he's capable of making big plays, like we saw last year. He's my age, so we connect in that. We were supposed to come out the same class, but I left early anyway. He's fast. He's got good route running, and I can tell that it means a lot to him. And he wants to go far with this football thing. So it's always good to have guys that want to succeed and want to play at a high level on your team.
All right, now here's Quinn talking about his rapport with those receivers. Question: a lot of people have been asking, "Hey, have you guys, found some chemistry? Have you guys worked on, the timing and execution with those routes? Because you had a lot of history and experience with the guys from last season, playing with them for multiple years." Here's Quinn. You were talking about the rapport with his receivers.
Yeah, no, for sure. Getting timing down with different guys, and because with that receiving crew, besides AD, that was year 2 for me with those guys. So I was comfortable of how they were getting in and out of breaks, and like you said, it does take time to get used to that. And, I think we've done a pretty good job so far, and I think it's only going to get better, especially during camp.
That is the hope. Like I said, because he and Bond did not have it. They did not have that at spring, but they said you got a lot of time to work on that, or during the spring, I should say. Bowden and Wingo, both new, right? You didn't have Silas Bowden coming from Oregon State during the spring. He just got there in the offseason post-spring. And you didn't have you did have Ryan Wingo, but Ryan Wingo is a freshman. So he is still relatively new. So both of these newcomers are expected to make that circle of trust that I talk about, that expanded wide receiver rotation. Here is Quinn Ewers discussing specifically Silas Bowden and Ryan Wingo.
Yeah, starting with Wingo, the maturity that he has at such a young age, and his ability to understand what we want to do on the offensive side of the ball, and his ability to go up and make plays is, I haven't really seen anything like it. So for him to come in the way that he has, I'm excited about what he's going to do for this university. And then Silas, coming from Oregon State, I think he's going to be a huge contributor to our success for sure. I think he's going to do a great job wherever Coach Stark ends up putting him. I think he's going to do awesome things with. Surprisingly, he's a shorter guy, but he'll go up and catch those 50 balls, which was surprising to me. But it's always good for me to see.
I think Quinn might have dropped something in there with Silas Bowden, wherever he puts him. You notice that?
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Wherever he puts him. I think he's maybe dropping a hint there that he may be a boutique gadget guy in the offense, kind of replacing Keelan Robinson, not obviously playing running back or anything, but just in the way that Sark uses him in a very boutique fashion, coming up with plays and concepts specifically for him. Like there were some plays that you can tell they were specifically designed for Keelan Robinson. Like, oh, that's a Keelan Robinson play.
So I think
he literally brought him in a game for that play.
I think that's part of it, but I will say I think there's another part that because he wasn't there in spring, he doesn't know exactly how he just hasn't really practiced with Sark and Bolden.
That's true.
So there may be part of it too, where he's just like, I don't know if he's going to be in the slot, or I don't know if he's going to be on my left side, or right. I don't know where Sark wants him to be. I don't know how many reps I'm going to have with him. So I just have not. Sark has not called a play between in practice or anywhere with me and Bolden. So I don't know what he's going to do with him because he doesn't fit the mold of a prototypical wide receiver because he is smaller. He can go out there and play, but. So I think you're right because that's the way I heard it the first time too. Was how's what does he mean? How's he going to use him? So I'm guessing there's piece of that because you know that Quinn and Sark talk. But I think there's also part of it of him just being like, I don't know where. Like I haven't seen him play. I haven't played yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I know they've been throwing.
Yeah.
And so where's he lining up in the throwing sessions?
Yeah.
You're doing 7-on-7.
Yeah, exactly.
You are.
Yeah.
So he's throwing. And where's he lined up in throwing sessions? So he has to have an idea about where he's putting them in the throwing sessions. And my theory is that Sark's already told him, well, he's going to play different positions, so move him around.
I think so.
And then he's like, well, I don't know where he's going to end up, but we're moving him around in different places so he can learn different spots. And Sark's already said all the receivers learn every position out there. He makes that mandatory. That's why a lot of guys don't crack the circle of trust because they don't have the football acumen to learn every position. Where Sark trusts their ability to go out there and execute, and that's why you're like, man, why is that guy's really good? Why didn't he crack the circle of trust? Couldn't learn every position.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it too. No, I like your theory though. I think it is part of it. I think it's kind of a multifactorial thing. All right, last one here from Cohen. And this is one about the Texas A&M rivalry. And I thought this was interesting. This talks about Papa Quinn, talking about his dad and how his dad explained kind of the Texas A&M rivalry to Quinn. Think about it because it would be new to him, new generation. Last time he played was 2011. Hell, Quinn was a young buck. Here's Quinn Ewers talking about Texas A&M.
Yeah, I mean, it stopped playing back in 2011, if I'm correct. I was pretty young. I think I was 8, but just hearing like stories and what my dad and family has talked about it, my dad actually said that he thinks that him growing up, he believed that the A&M game was bigger than the Red Rivalry game. So I'm excited to have that game back. And it's going to be a cool experience, especially going to Kyle Field, Thanksgiving weekend. And I know that place is going to be rocking. So we're all pretty fired up for it.
Yeah. So Quinn's dad back in it. I don't know how old Quinn's dad is and what his generation is. The Texas OU game became bigger than Texas A&M and has been bigger, at least I would say since 2000 when Oklahoma won the national title for my generation. And Texas A&M has not surpassed that rivalry since then. This year it will, but it will be an outlier. And then Texas OU once again after this season, because they've rekindled it, and then obviously the thrill is gone. I think then Texas OU will once again take its place as the main marquee rivalry for Texas. But and maybe at one point, I mean, A&M did win the conference or win the Big 12 in 1998. So maybe before then.
Yeah, and Texas, I think I could believe too that because Houston's a little bit closer to College Station, that Houston Longhorns may have something more where they're around more Aggies, so it means a little bit more. Because if you're Austin or Dallas, there's a little bit Sooners too in that world, but in Houston, it's way closer to College Station. So I could believe because we know that Quinn's from the Houston area.
I'm from the Dallas area.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's from Dallas. I think he's got some family that are Aggies. They got some Aggies in his family. But I will say you're right about the Houston being. Houston was an Aggie town actually before Mac Brown got there. I will say that it was. I'm from Houston. Yeah. It was more of an Aggie town. Yeah. Mac flipped it. Mac flipped H-Town into being more of a Longhorn town. I know it sounds crazy, but Mac's success and then the way that Mac recruited in H-Town. And he turned a lot of the high school coaches in H-Town. Like nobody from Houston Lamar and Houston Lamar's become a pipeline to Texas, right? You've had 7-8 players come from Houston Lamar. since Rod B went there, I was the first. We had guys go to A&M. We had guys that go to Oklahoma State. We hadn't had any guys that went to Texas from Houston Lamar, like in the modern age of college football. And I was one of the first. And hey, I will take credit for starting the pipeline. Y'all are welcome. But it was just because it was an Aggie town, though, and I was almost an Aggie. It just came down to Texas and Texas A&M. Okay. Let's come back. We'll come back. We'll get into Rod's rant of the day. We'll throw a little NFL discussion out there. We've been talking a lot of college football. Let's talk some NFL. We'll talk about something that made the Cowboys defense special that definitely is going to go away now that Dan Quinn's gone. We'll dive into that a little bit. And we'll also get into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. I want to get into some NFL discussion here. I saw this list. Remember we were talking about Jeremy Fowler and his survey that he's doing. He's doing a survey of NFL execs. So I'm sure there's some GMs in there, but execs, scouts, and coaches, and asking them to rank the best players, top 10 best players at every position. They did quarterback, and we talked about that. Having Dak too low, disrespecting Dak. All right. And I do think with these rankings, I'm just gonna say I think there may be a bit of trolling happening. And we see this at times. Pro Football Focus is kind of famous for this because they do it to Longhorn fans because they know Longhorn fans will get all crazy. And it may be something minor. It could be like having a picture of Deshaun Jameson at number 5 and keep calling him Bijan Robinson. And they know y'all going to get amped up and crazy about it. And it just boosts their impressions and engagement and that kind of stuff. So it could be something like that. But I will say I saw in those rankings, obviously we talked about Dak Prescott being ranked a little too low. And I think him being ranked at 10 probably could have been ranked a little bit higher. I did see they're doing cornerbacks now. We'll get to the wide receiver rankings in a second. They're doing cornerbacks now. We'll get to this probably tomorrow because I haven't necessarily got a chance to break it all down. They don't have Deron Bland or Trevon Diggs on their quarterback list either. And you can make the argument that one of them could have been on there. Hell, Deron Bland was an All-Pro this past year, right? He was in the running for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yes.
And they don't even have him on there. But you can make that. I haven't seen the whole list, so I'm not going to hate on the list yet. But you can justify it, I'm sure. And Trevon Diggs, of course, we know he was hurt this past year. But before that, the year before that, he was an All-Pro. And they don't make their list. The top cornerbacks list, ESPN's top 10 cornerback list. But we'll get back to that. But I want to get to the wide receiver list. I do think they might be trolling the Cowboys a little bit here, and maybe it's happening again because they released the wide receivers. And I have a question. I just want to know: is CeeDee Lamb? Do we think Jamar Chase is better than CeeDee Lamb? That's the question I basically have. Is Jamar Chase better? I don't really definitively know.
I will say this. I will say this. If Joe Burrow is the second best quarterback and Dak Prescott's the 10th, then CeeDee Lamb is the better wide receiver.
Oh, I like that thought process.
You can't say they're both worse because somebody has to be better in that equation, right?
I like
if the stats are better for CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott than Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, then don't you have to say, well, then one of those guys has to be better than the other? They can't both be better, but then the stats are worse?
I honestly, that's a great point. It's hard to argue against that. It's hard to argue against that rationale. That's good. That's pretty good reasoning. Because I'm torn. Right now I think I'm taking CeeDee Lamb, but I think it could be recency bias, and I'm just not giving Jamar Chase enough credit.
Yeah, because Joe Burrow didn't play last year. He missed a lot of the season.
And Jamar Chase still got 1,200 yards.
Yeah, I mean, and so that's what I'm saying. I get Jamar
1,200 yards.
Jamar Chase is really, really good.
He got 145 targets, 100 receptions, 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, and he didn't have Joe Burrow for most of that, not all of it, basically, damn near all of it. No, I'm genuinely asking the question. It's something that, and I like your breakdown there. And then somebody probably would throw out there Jamar Chase's last year without Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Without Joe Burrow for most of it. Look what he did without Joe Burrow. Still a beast. Good question. Either way, they got him 3-4. I mean, I'm sure you could flip-flop them either way. But it just got me thinking. I was like, I wonder. That what they decided just put him at 4 so we can get Cowboys fans all. So they can get all riled up and start asking.
I will throw in that what I enjoyed. I know that Texas played the top 4 wide receivers. Texas played all 4 of them at one point in college.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because they have Justin Jefferson, of course, LSU. They didn't play Tyreek Hill, though.
They did. Oklahoma State in 2014.
I don't know if he was playing.
He did. He was in there. I looked up the box score. He played against him.
Did he really?
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, because I don't remember that.
He had 8 receptions for 18 yards.
Wow.
I'm sorry, that was rushing. He had 8 rushes for 18 yards. He had 1 reception for 4 yards. He had 8 rushes for 18 yards.
So he did running back then.
He played, but I guess he was playing running back.
They were playing. I wonder if they had him like in a running back role. So I really don't even remember him at all.
They did. Yeah, because I went and looked it up because I was seeing if that was true that they played him at Oklahoma State, and they did.
Wow, because he was only there for like 1 year.
Yes. So 2014.
The issue or whatever. Wow, good stuff there. Good nugget. Then of course Jamar Chase, LSU, and then CeeDee Lamb at Oklahoma. That's a good point. I didn't really think about that, but you're right. They played the top 4, and lost to 3 of the 4, right? They didn't lose to Oklahoma State that
No,
year, did
they won 28-7 in that game. So
thank the Lord. Because I was like, oh, he lost all 4. But yeah, that's a nice nugget though. Good stuff there. I did not realize that. Damn. So how did they not weaponize? Now I got to go back and watch that game randomly. How did they not weaponize Tyreek Hill more just to get him out?
The quarterback for
And why is he
Oklahoma
getting-
State in that game. Any guesses?
2014. Oh, damn. Oh, hold up. 2014. That's Charlie. I got nothing. Oh, I got nothing. Give it to me.
So, do you want Texas was Swoops, and then Oklahoma State was Dax Garman.
Yeah, I was trying to get Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Dax Garman is your
that's
quarterback.
probably why they didn't throw it to him.
No, their leading rusher had 23 yards in that game. Their leading receiver, who is Desmond Rowland, had 23 yards. Their leading receiver, Doolittle, had 32 yards on 1 catch, and then Gidden had 3 receptions for 31 yards.
That had to be one of Gundy's worst offenses.
Yeah, that offense didn't seem to do well. So
had to be one of his worst offenses. Oh man, that's just terrible. Anyway, that's I wanted to get to that conversation about the wide receivers. So here's your top 10: Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams is number 5, AJ Brown 6, Amon-Ra St. Brown 7, Mike Evans 8, Stephon Diggs 9, the Texans, and Brandon Ayuk they got here at 10 for the 49ers who has requested a trade. Not demanded a trade, but he's requested a trade. Honorable mention, they got Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. That's kind of neat. Amari Cooper. Nico Collins makes it as the honorable mention. It's a lot of good wide receivers.
So number 10, asking for a trade. Number 5, saying there is no trade. Devontae Adams, people are saying, we're not looking for a trade. There are no trade talks.
And I believe Tyreek Hill has been angling toward getting himself a new deal.
He knows he's going to get released after this year or restructured after this year, because that last year of his contract, from everything I've read, is like $40 million.
It balloons.
It balloons that last year, but it's not guaranteed. So he knows they're not paying that. So I think he's like, hey, so we all know the elephant in the room is something's happening after this year.
Is the last year that I'm playing on this deal. Can we? Are you going to reinvest in me, or what are we going to do here? Trade me? What are we doing?
You just signed Waddle. What's happening?
Yeah, and the baby mama thing with Tyreek Hill is getting a little wild. I'm starting to hear. Did you hear they just confirmed another one? Oh, he's got another kid.
Tyreek.
It's kind of wild. I don't know what the number is at now, but it's too many. It's too many, Tyreek. Too many.
Tyreek.
I don't know what's going on there. That's weird. Okay, another NFL story that I wanted to get to. We don't have time now, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it a little bit later on. So apparently there is a list. I think that was an ESPN article, I should say, that was written about the kind of most overrated player. That one NFL exec basically in his breakdown on these Jeremy Fowler things. He described Sauce Gardner as the most overrated player in the NFL. And now there's a conversation going on about who's the most overrated player in the league. Say Sauce Gardner, who made it all pro as a first team all pro as a rookie, to say he's overrated. That's a bold statement, sir. That is a bold statement from any exec to call the dude overrated. So we'll get to some of those kind of salacious NFL nuggets that are out there. So there's some conversation happening. But let's get to the break. We'll come back, get to what the facts, what the stats. Got a bunch of those to share with you on the other side. We'll also get to some more discussion about SEC Media Days. Nick Saban gave CJ Baxter one of the best compliments I've ever heard a coach say about a player. I was blown away by it, and I got to go back and see what CJ Baxter did against Alabama. That was so impressive. Maybe Nick Saban was watching him, before the Alabama game, but he gave him a great compliment, and we'll talk about that too coming up a little bit later on. But up next, we got what the facts, what the stats, right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to What the Facts, What the Stats. Here, I got a couple of factoids that I want to share. I know, man. CB sent me the article about at least the alleged number of kids that now Tyreek Hill has. Uh, if he's approaching double digits, like this article says, then that's crazy. That's wild. Shouldn't be the case, but that's the allegation is that he's got a lot of kids out there and multiple baby mamas. And so, yeah, might need a new contract. 30 million might not be enough for Tyreek Hill. All right, what the facts, what the stats. Detroit has released a study breaking down the economic impact of this year's NFL draft. Remember, the NFL has been brilliant. They've basically been moving around. Some people think they should keep the draft in the same place every time, and I disagree with that. They should move the draft around like they're doing. They're basically turning into the biggest football festival in the world. It's basically a football festival. It's as big as any music festival in the country. It's as big as Coachella and ACL and South by Southwest. It's right up there with those in terms of the attendance. It's right up there with those types of festivals. I mean, what'd you get? The NFL draft, if you go look at the one they had in Philly, had 250,000 people. The one they had in Tennessee, they had over half a million people in the streets in Tennessee throughout the duration of the draft. When they had in Vegas in 22, they had 300,000. They had 200,000 in Dallas when they had it there. I mean, guys, Coachella gets what, 200,000 people? South by Southwest, you get about 400,000 people. The Essence Festival gets about 450 to 500,000 people. The New Orleans Jazz Festival is around that same number too. I mean, that's basically what the NFL's turned this into. Is into a football festival. I think when they had it recently in Detroit, they didn't give me the numbers on the people, but I will find it for you. But I guarantee you the numbers were staggering. But here are the economic impact numbers. It says here $213 million, the economic impact. 161 million came from out of town visitors. Says that over 50 million viewers were on television. 30% of all attendees traveled 100 plus miles to go to this thing. So, I mean, my brother went to the one in Nashville. So, I mean, there are people that travel to it it's kind of a bucket list event for them. Fans from all 50 states and more than 20 countries attended the draft in person. They had one fan that even came from Australia. Hotel occupancy rates ranged from 74% on Saturday to 92% on Thursday during the NFL draft. And, talking about the economic impact, they're going to continue to move it around, like I said, and make it a festival. If it's in one place, I'm sure that it will be successful. I'm not saying it won't, but I do think there's a new added element to that kind of the festival atmosphere that it brings when you keep moving it around to different locations.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for the NFL.
So
to keep doing it.
The number is what they said, 700,000, over 700,000 for the 3-day events at Detroit.
Attended
yes.
Detroit draft.
Yes.
The number keeps growing.
Yeah. So that's the new record was over 700,000 was what they said. For Detroit, I think the people who wanted to go to one place are the people who don't like going to some of these locations. Like they didn't want to go to Detroit. They don't want to go to Green Bay. They don't want to go to.
You're right.
So I think it's the people like, man, make it somewhere fun. Like we want to go.
Yeah, they want to be in Vegas all the time.
Yeah, because like the reporters and stuff are like, well, we got to go out there, but can we go somewhere that at night there's stuff to do and like this is like make it somewhat of a vacation for us as opposed to just straight work.
That's a great point. I think that's why it's coming from the media.
Yeah.
They should leave it in one place. It's like, what's one place? They should leave it in Vegas. I think Vegas is a good place.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, because you just want to hang out in Vegas while you work. Like, no,
you can
they move it around.
Put it in Miami. That's fine.
I want to say they are going to move it. I got to go look up where they're going to move it next. But I want to say
I think it's Green Bay, right?
Green Bay. Yeah, I don't necessarily. That will be a test. That will be a test to truly see if it is a festival. How many people will travel to Green Bay? Let's say it was 30%. They said of the people that attended the draft came from out of town.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, I wonder how many will travel from out of town to go to Green Bay. It's got to be most people that come from out of town because nobody's there. But I just wonder how many people they're going to be able to get that want to go to Green Bay. Like I wonder how they're going to do that.
I don't know.
They said 30% of the attendees traveled 100 plus miles to go to the Detroit draft.
Yeah, because
so how many people are going to travel that far to go to Green Bay?
The
Wisconsin?
Green Bay population, 106,000.
So you're going to quadruple that population, right? Potentially.
You could. I mean, it's going to be a lot. That's a lot of people that are going to be shoved into a place that.
Can the infrastructure of the town handle it? I know they do game days, but that's more than game days then.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's more than game days.
The draft is going to be way more than game days. Let's say they double, kind of what the population. Let's say they get to 200,000. I don't know, game days. People just come from out of town, whatever. Let's just assume that they have tailgates and everything like that. Hell, the draft is going to double that.
Yeah, I feel like people be in Milwaukee though. People come in.
That's true. I guess they'll just shove them. I don't know how far it is either, so I haven't done that kind of math, but that's wild. Yeah. So we'll see how that works out, but I still think they should move it around. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like in Green Bay. Okay, those some stats for you and what the facts, what the stats. We come back, we'll get back into SEC Media Day discussion. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about his program. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about the standard at the University of Texas. It might be my favorite quote and favorite moment from Sark at SEC Media Days. We'll dive into that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday. My co-host Patrick Davis comes up with all the musically themed days of the week. And on a new theme Thursday, he's especially creative, coming up with a new theme. And today's theme is a celebration of the anniversary of America winning the space race and stepping foot on the moon. And the anniversary of that will be this weekend. So to celebrate that accomplishment, my man Patrick is breaking out all songs that reference, or at least in the lyrics, in some form or fashion, mention the moon. Because New Theme Thursday is a celebration of the anniversary of America winning the space race and taking the first steps on the moon. And yes, I know that there are some people that believe conspiracy theory that it was all done in some studio and they did not actually step on the moon. I know it's gained some steam throughout the years. I've not necessarily, I've not stepped on that grassy knoll. I'm not saying, I'm not disputing and disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I've not done any real research on that conspiracy theory. There's some conspiracy theories that I will, I'll jump on that grassy knoll and I'll embrace. I've not embraced that one.
No,
as of yet. Who knows?
My favorite reason to not believe it, or to believe that it exists, that actually happened, is that Buzz Aldrin was notorious for punching people who said that it was fake.
That is great. Yeah,
and that feels like something if you did something that was like monumental, and then someone was like, "No, you didn't," you'd be like, "Dude."
I'd probably punch you. I'd probably punch you in the face too. Yeah, I agree.
Like Rod,
I support him.
Rod, if you had like 4 national championships and 3 interceptions in each of those, and they were like, "No, you didn't," like, I'm gonna punch this dude. The greatest defensive back in college football history.
No, honestly, I support that, man. I support that. You're right. That is passion. He's like, hold up, man, you mean I risk my life? I could have died back then. They didn't know what was gonna happen. You know what I mean? They have no idea what was gonna happen. Those were true explorers. There are no real explorers anymore. Those are true explorers. And then you go like, nah, I don't believe it happened. It's like, and it's usually for some pipsqueak who wasn't even born. Like, they didn't even witness or experience it. They're in their 20s and their 30s. And they're like, yeah, I don't really believe in that. It's like, you don't believe in it. What are you talking about, man? That inspired generations to achieve greatness, because they were like, man, if a man can walk on the moon, we can do anything. Right? We can do anything. Our imaginations that does not exceed our grasp as a civilization. And then it's just like, nah, I don't believe it. I don't think they did that. Why don't they go back? Why don't you go back? Why don't you? That's one of also the main arguments. Like, why don't they go back then? Why don't they just set up shop up there? It's like, I have no idea why they don't set up shop on there.
I know. It could probably cost a lot of money to get space rocks.
I have no idea. Don't ask me that. I'm not going to get into it.
We put stuff on Mars now too.
No, they're reaching out.
Stuff in other places. It's pretty crazy.
The moon's old. The moon's, I said, that's old news.
That's old news.
They're moving on.
We see that every night. We check on that. Just walk outside at night. Still there.
Still there. All right, there you go. So that is the theme for New Theme Thursday. We appreciate my man Patrick there. We also appreciate him hooking us up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, which I got to tell you, I was wrong. I thought the Aggies would run away with this one.
Ooh.
Not the case at all. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll today.
Big Fat Poll today. Which true road game scares you the most next season for Texas? I'm somewhat surprised with these results too. Because
honestly, now, hell, there's a third. Honestly, the third most popular one is making some moves.
Yeah. So there's 4 options. There's basically only 4 true road games next season for Texas.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma game, of course, is not a true road game because it's a neutral site. So your 4 true road games are Michigan, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M. Vanderbilt coming in with 3%.
How the hell is Vanderbilt getting 3%?
I mean, some of y'all trolling us.
There's definitely somebody trolling us. Take this seriously, guys. Take this poll seriously.
Does PFF do they subscribe? Then they follow.
Like, who is picking Vanderbilt as the most dangerous road game?
You got to comment. If you pick Vanderbilt, you got to comment and be like,
yes,
here's why Vanderbilt.
I need to know. I will say this: they got a really good cornerback duo there.
Okay,
they have really good cornerback.
Run the ball. We're good. But actually, Michigan is winning right now. 42% of the vote right now is Michigan.
That is not as surprising as some other things about.
And then A&M's number 2 at 31, but at 23 is Arkansas.
Arkansas.
That's
that old school.
I don't think it's that old school. I think it's those people that remember the game a couple years ago. I think it's that. I think that is in people's mind, and they're like, "We went up there and got beat bad."
Oh yeah.
So maybe that's a little bit still fresh in people's mind.
I think it's that, but also I think old school people know that's a real rival.
Yeah.
Even Sark talks about that's a real rivalry because there's hatred from one side, and the Arkansas is the one that hates Texas, and there's long standing history with it as well. So I think you're right. I think it's recency bias because we were thinking about that 2021 game, but I think ultimately there's some old school folks on here voting too. I don't know how many. There's some old school folks who like no Arkansas, Fayetteville, man, it scares the hell out of me. That's a hostile, dangerous place to play or visit as a fan if you're from Texas, and they hate Texas 24/7. 365. They hate Texas all year round. This is not a seasonal thing. They hate Texas all year round. Anybody from representing the Longhorns. So I'm surprised by that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm surprised that Arkansas is at 23%, but it just shows you. I mean, Texas fans are well aware of getting those old rivals back. The Aggies still in second place, but I thought the Aggies would be in first place, but they're at 32%. And I think, hell, you give this a little bit more time, Arkansas could catch A&M here. So I just and then maybe that's because people don't remember going to A&M and when A&M actually is formidable. And they were actually pretty good in 2011. Texas actually had no business winning that game. They did, but the Aggies actually should have won that game. But the Longhorns just outplayed them. And Case McCoy, we talked about, got the clutch gene. Is Case McCoy a great quarterback? Not really, but he got the clutch gene.
He did. I was laughing. Somebody at Big 12 Media or SEC Media Days asked Quinn the question, and he was like, "Do you remind me? Is it you're getting up there in Texas in your third year? Is this something where you're expecting to be, getting the names like Case McCoy?" And then I was like, "Case? Why are you comparing him to Case? Like, I like Case, but come on, like what you?" And then he said Case and Vince, and I went, "Oh, you meant Colt. You meant Colt."
Oh, he meant Colt. Yeah, he's like, he said Colt. He was thinking
yes, he said Colt, and then he said Vince, and I'm like, no one has ever said Case and Vince.
No, that was definitely the first time. Case is like, yeah, you know what? Thank you for the shout out. That's definitely the first time.
That's the problem is when Google's not your friend, you say McCoy, Texas, and it said Case McCoy. And you went, cool, that's the one.
Still, your Google has also failed you. If you talked in McCoy, Texas, and Case came up, I love me some Case, but that should happen. Coach should get that. That's great. But I'll say this, because Quinn seems to understand though the rivalries and having to travel to two of them, and then the other, basically he won't play any of his rivals at home. I mean, he's go Oklahoma's at a neutral site, of course, and then of course he'll play Arkansas and A&M. They'll be on the road. That's a good test for Quinn because for a quarterback specifically, you are the one who's got to take command of the offense in those times, settle everybody down. This is going to be Quinn's team, so that's going to be interesting. All right, so there you go. That's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Surprising results there, so you guys continue to surprise us. We appreciate your participation in the show today. All right, so we'll get back to that. Let's get to the Horn headlines here, and then we'll come back and dive into some of this Sark sound because Steve Sarkisian, I thought, was a home run. I thought he hit a home run. I thought he was great, fantastic at SEC Media Days. We'll hear from the head coach here, but first, let's get updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Team USA improved to 3-0 after a 105-79 win over Serbia yesterday. Steph Curry led the way early, scoring USA's first 9 points before finishing with 24 on the game. Serbia kept it tight, tying the game early at 28 after a buzzer beater before the end of the first quarter, but USA was able to pull away in the second quarter, getting a 14-point lead before half. Bam Adebayo had 17 points, while Anthony Edwards had another good game, scoring 16. Team USA now heads to London for its next warm-up game with South Sudan on Saturday. In the MLB, teams start getting ready to restart their season tomorrow with the Rangers welcoming the AL leading Orioles to Arlington, while the Astros are heading to Seattle to take on the Mariners in a series for control of the AL West. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the horn headlines. Appreciate those. All right, let's get right to the Steve Sarkisian sound from SEC Media Days. Love Sark's tone, delivery. I thought he did a great job commanding the room. There was a bit early filibuster for first 12 to 15 minutes, but I thought actually there was substance there. There were a couple of we'll play a couple right here. I thought some of his finest moments were during that early kind of opening statement that he made at SEC Media Days. And here's Sark initially talking about what I think is a huge advantage for them really this entire season, not just in the SEC, but nationally compared to every other school, is the coaching continuity at the top of the program for him. And then he gets into the playing style, the brand of football that Texas plays and how that won't change going into the SEC. Here's Steve Sarkisian.
As far as our coaching staff goes, one thing that we have going for us is coordinator continuity. I've had the same coordinators in 4 years now here at Texas, with Kyle Flood on the offensive line, offensive coordinator, Pete Kwiatkowski as our defensive coordinator, and then Jeff Banks as our special teams coordinator. From an offensive perspective, if you haven't ever seen us play, we believe in balance. We even believe in trying to make it hard on the defense with multiple personnel groupings, formations, motion shifts. We love to run the football. We love to play action pass. We love to RPO. That's not going to change. Okay, so if you're wondering how's it going to look with the new headset communication thing, we aren't going to change. We're going to do what we do. We're just going to try to do it better than we did a year ago. Okay, defensively, I think one thing that we've really tried to evolve into, we've really tried to commit ourselves to stopping the run. And I think that showed a year ago. We have to be better in pass defense. And there's two ways to get better in pass defense. One, got to cover people better, right? You got to guard people better. You have to have people that can guard them. You also have to have the schemes to guard those people, but you have to have a better way to affect the quarterback. And so we've really tried to invoke that into our team of how do we create more of a pass rush to affect the quarterback, which I think we've improved upon this year, and we'll see the benefits of that. And then on special teams, we're an aggressive special teams unit. We try to go block the kick. If we're not going to block the kick, we're going to try to return it for a touchdown. That's just the way we operate. And Coach Banks does a great job with that, and looking forward to another great year. And when you have depth on your team like we have right now, that's when your special teams can really start to rise up, because we try to play our best players on special teams. And when you've got multiple good players, now that depth can permeate to special teams. And so we think we're going to be even better on teams than we've been in the past, and we've been pretty good. And in the end, for our team, we have to be mentally and physically tough. And that's the way we preach. That's what we teach. That's the way we work. That's the way we work in the off season. That'll never change. And for any of you who have ever been to Austin, Texas in July, and you start walking in DKR and running in DKR at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you better be mentally and physically tough. And that's what our guys are doing right now.
Yeah. That's Sark talking about a couple of things there, unpacking that statement. I'm glad that he brought up the passing defense. He hasn't talked about the pass defense the entire offseason. Remember, we brought it up several times on this show. He's actively avoided talking about the pass defense, and he's, remarked there are other things that concern him. Even when he was just talking about why they lost the Washington game, he never talked about the pass defense being an issue. Glad he brought up pass defense, because that's something that I've been personally concerned about with the team. He also talked about the continuity at the top with the coaching staff for him, bringing back all of his coordinators. Texas is one of 4 schools in the entire country that bring back OC, DC, strength and conditioning coach, special teams coach, and a multi-year starting quarterback. Only 4 schools in the country that have that much continuity at critical spots at the top of the the blueprint there and the hierarchy of the team. Also, he talked about a couple other things about their playing style and how it won't change. I've been giving you guys a lot of the conceptual signatures for Sark that are also popular trends, concepts, schemes, ideologies, philosophies in the SEC. And how many of those where Sark is already ahead of the game on. Sark's offense is going to adapt really well to the SEC. I mean, hell, the SEC is going to have to adapt to Sark in a lot of ways, because he is such a progressive trendsetter in key areas with a lot of cheat codes and force multipliers, as we talked about. Pre-snap motion shifts, they'll be ahead of the SEC rate. I think the Sarks should use it even more. SEC rates around 34%. Sarks around 50, between 50 and 55%. He probably should be at 75%. He would shell shock the SEC if he accelerated that or increased it next season. But you look at early down pass rate for the SEC, it's at 45%. Sark is much higher than that. You look at, bunch sets, tight bunch set usage in the SEC. That has actually declined. Empty usage has kind of flatlined in the SEC. I think Sark should use both more empty formation, but he already uses a ton of tight sets. We talked about yesterday, Nick Saban saying why he hates going up against the Sark offense because of the condensed, compressed sets, what he calls squeeze splits, reduced splits by the receivers, because it throws off all the leverage points and throws off a lot of the rules of your defense. It stresses your defense a ton, and Sark loves compressed and condensed sets. These are all things that are, I'm going to say, foreign or unfamiliar to coaches in the SEC, but definitely is not something that they see on an every game basis. It's more, like I said, it's more for them. These are more outside the box concepts. I think once you bring Sark in there and he starts using these concepts and overloading the circuitry of a defense by using, multiple cheat codes and hacks all in one play, I think the SEC is going to be adjusting to his style. But anyway, so getting back to it, let's hear Sark. This might be my favorite moment from Sark. He's talking about now the expectation. And this is, I think, Sark speaking to older generations of Texas fans and different generations of Texas fans. But here's Sark talking about what the new expectation is for Texas after last season.
At the University of Texas, the standard is the standard, okay? Part of that standard is our culture, all right? Our culture is what makes us who we are. We take a lot of pride in our culture. We pour into our culture. We are a very connected group. We love one another. We work with one another, and that's not going to change, okay? But at the University of Texas, part of the standard being the standard is competing for championships. I'm up here talking about football, but it's at every sport. It's at every level. And so regardless of the conference, and that's to take nothing away from the SEC, our goal is to come into this conference and compete for a conference championship. It is what it is. That's why you go to the University of Texas. So that won't change. And I want to leave you with this. When I took the job at the University of Texas, and I walked into DKR, and one of the first signs I saw was a quote that I've put up now in my office that I'll always and forever hold on to. The pride and winning tradition at the University of Texas shall not be entrusted to the weak nor the timid. And that's not going to change now that we've changed conferences. We're going to go attack this thing. Like I said, we've got a ton of respect for this conference and the teams in this conference, but we're going to go attack it, and we're going to go try to win a conference championship, because that's why we're at the University of Texas. So we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to renewing rivalries with Texas A&M and with Arkansas. We're one of the few schools with realignment that has benefited from realignment, that we've gotten some rivalries back. And so we're looking forward to those things as well. And it's going to be a great year. We're looking forward to it. Thank you. Hook 'em.
All right. Love that. My favorite moment from Sark there. And the standard is the standard, by the way. That is something that Sark now, he must have gotten that in a conversation from someone who had been in the Longhorn family for a while, because that's where I got it. I mean, you guys have heard me say that the standard is the standard. Don't let your expectations affect the standard. Remember, I've always told you guys, I won 11 games my last 2 years at Texas. Didn't meet the standard. Lost to Oklahoma. Didn't win a Big 12 title with all that talent we had. Didn't meet the standard. And it's okay to admit that, at the time, because we knew that's how high the standard was. We were trying to push the standard and trying to meet that standard. And the standard is the standard. Don't lower it. And it's okay to say that a team was good and that a team was really good. Hell, you could even argue we were borderline great, and we still didn't meet the standard. That's how high it is. And I'm glad that Sark now openly is admitting that. I think either he, just after 2023, just came to that conclusion and talked to someone that finally informed him, hey, man, that is always the standard, what you just did in 2023. Or he already knew about that and didn't want to put too much of a heavy burden on a team who is trying to bring back Texas. I was on a team that was also trying to bring back Texas when we came in 99. Bring it back to prominence. Bring back the brand to being feared and respected. And if you're going to do that, the standard is the standard. But that might be too much of a burden on some young guys who coming off a 5-7 season and then coming off an 8-win season to tell them straight up, yeah, just so you know, that was good. You're improving. There's growth. There's progress, but you're not meeting the standard. And now that they've experienced the standard, now you can tell everybody, just so you know, that's it. That's the standard. And if you don't do that, the season's not a failure. No, it's not a failure. And you can still be good. You can still be really good. Hell, you could even be great and not meet that standard. That's how high the standard is. And I'm glad he said the standard's the standard. Don't change it. Don't drop it. And because Texas has been average to below average to even mediocre a lot, if not most of the last 15 years, there's a generation of Longhorn fans who don't know the standard. And they keep dropping the standard. And Robbie comes on and rants about 8 wins. And like, Robbie, why are you ranting? Team's getting better. I'm like, because the standard is the standard. Don't lower the standard because of your expectations now. The standard is the standard, damn it. It's been that way. It will always be that way. And it should always be that way. God bless Sark for saying it.
And I'll say this. I'm glad he said it there, but I'm also glad that he's clearly said it to the players because we heard the players mention it multiple times throughout the day as well. And that's a big piece of it because if he's just saying it for the fans, that's fine. That's great. But if you're not telling the players, then they don't know that. And they're not going to be trying to reach a standard and not understanding that standard is your base. That's where you want to be. And then you want to achieve over that.
Yep.
But the standard is that's it was good to hear. That was a phrase that I've not heard in the first 3 seasons under Sark. I had not really heard it, and especially not from players. And it was pretty much across the board. Everybody at least mentioned it at some point, the standard. And he went, okay, that's a talking point. That's what the obsession, that obsession that was one that came out, and the standard seems to be one that is now permeating the locker room.
Good point. Those are like, you're right. That's coming from on high. That's coming straight from the coaches and being communicated to the players. And that's now I'm with you. That's one of those buzzwords you're starting to hear a lot of. It's a great observation there. Okay, let's get to a couple of more here, and then we'll get to the break and get to behind the burn orange curtain. And also, we got some more Sark audio, but the one that we'll get to behind the burn orange curtain is interesting for a lot of different reasons. But the wide receiver rotation, I predicted early on this offseason, even before the spring, Texas will have, as soon as they acquired all of these elite wide receivers via the transfer portal, all these really good dynamic players via the transfer portal, in addition to what Sark had already accumulated, I said, man, you got to expand the wide receiver rotation. It's going to be hard to sell wide receivers on coming to Texas, essentially stockpiling great starter caliber wide receivers if you don't weaponize and maximize all of them in some way. To just play more wide receivers. Expand the rotation. I called it the circle of trust. You guys have heard me refer to that because Sark has to trust you to be able to put you in that wide receiver rotation, and it's just hard to earn his trust because he makes you learn every position among the wide receivers, and if you don't know him, he's not going to put you out there. So early on in the season, as they start to get deeper and deeper to the playbook, and guys they can't pick it up, you'll notice some guys drift in and out of that circle of the trust. You're like, man, what happened to that guy? He was playing early on. Yeah, he was. Not anymore. So that's kind of what it is. And Sark was asked by Kirk Bowles, I believe, hey, Sark, are you going to play more receivers now that you have so many and you're the deepest at that position you've ever been? Here is Steve Sarkisian.
I think it's probably twofold, Kurt. We are gonna play more receivers. I think the length of this season, and because of not having all of the rapport with Quinn. Some of that I have to feel out as games go. It is a very talented room for sure. And we've got 3 great transfers. When you talk about Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, 3 really experienced, good football players that came from good programs. We had signed a very good class the year before with Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore, and Ryan Niblett. And then with this incoming class, I think it's pretty fair to say Ryan Wingo is a really good player for us. And so to think that I've got 7 quality players there, now, is it going to be a 7-man rotation? That'll bear itself out. But I do think we'll play more players than we have in the past. We'll rotate more guys than we probably have in the past. And then as we work ourselves through the season, when you start playing this many games, I'd love to tell you we're not going to get injuries. Injuries are going to occur. So we're going to play more players probably earlier in the season than we have, just because you don't have some of that experience that we lost from a year ago. But this isn't a lack of talent. This group is very talented and by far and away our deepest receiver core that we've had in 4 years.
Yeah, and I think because of that depth, at least based on what I've observed about Sark, I think that means he could potentially bring in another concept, another innovative personnel package to help maximize that group. The trend with Sark has been if he has an embarrassment of riches at a certain position, that he brings in some innovative, some innovative concept to maximize and weaponize that advantage, that depth. He did that running back with the pony package because he had Rojo and Bijan. And he's continued to do that because the running back room is just so robust. And he's also done it with the offensive line. You've been with the Pancake Factory. You've been stockpiling some of the best offensive linemen in the country. You haven't had a lot of attrition there as either. So you've had a lot of depth there. And he brought in the Big 11, Big 12 package, which is a 6th offensive line package. And they used that more last season. And he's been losing that more the last couple of years because of the depth on the offensive line. Now you got unprecedented depth at wide receiver. We know when last time Sark had this kind of depth. Now it's not as deep as it was when he was at Alabama with 4 first-round wide receivers in Waddle, Ruggs, Devontae Smith, and Judy. Had Mechie and part of that group at 1.2. It's not that it doesn't have that high level of talent, first round count, that many first round guys. You may have 1 first round guy, 2 first round guys in there, Isaiah Bond, maybe a Ryan Wingo, but you do have a lot of depth there. So with the trend that I've seen, he's going to bring in an innovative concept to help maximize that depth. And he did at Alabama with what they call the red package, which is a 4 wide receiver package, 1 back, 0 tight ends, 10 personnel. And essentially just hunting matchups across the board because nobody had enough DBs to match up with 4 first-round wide receivers for Alabama. And with Texas, you can present SEC defensive coordinators with the same conundrum. And I'm not saying you're going to make it one of your staples. It would just be a kind of boutique complementary item. But, you could make it 3 to 5% of your personnel groupings, and it would make a huge difference. And that has been the trend. So that's my prediction. In addition to, I was right that he was going to expand the circle of trust for our receivers. I think they're going to bring in the 10 personnel package. We may have seen it 1 or 2 plays Sark's entire tenure. You probably can count on less than one hand how often he's used 10 personnel here at Texas. He doesn't like to take a tight end off the field. He thinks tight end, he says tight end, is the second most important position in his offense behind quarterback. And why the hell would you take JT Sanders off the field? So he doesn't want to take tight ends off the field. So for him to do that would mean it would kind of confirm my theory about how he approaches really talented depth at certain positions. As a matter of fact, Sark brings up his tight ends actually in this next clip we're going to play when he was asked about what's the next evolution of the offense. Like what's the next leap and for the offense area of growth. Here is what Steve Sarkisian had to say.
Well, I think, without telling Coach Norvell at Colorado State what we're going to do in week 1, part of it is we always try to stay on the cutting edge. I never want to get stale offensively. And I know what I said earlier, we're going to be who we are. But with that comes all of the subtle tweaks and things and formations and motions and personnel groupings and how do you group people the right way and to take advantage of it. Part of that is trying to play your best players. All right. Part of that is to how do we tax the defense? And so we do have a very versatile offensive team. You know, the fact that we've got very versatile runners. We got versatile tight ends. The addition of Amari Niblack has been great. Juan Davis, who I've been so impressed with coming out of spring ball and this summer. Gunnar Helm, we found out a lot about him when JT went down last year. We use an extra tackle at tight end some. So we try to do a lot of things to people to make them prepare for it. And then in game, what are we going to call that game that maybe they didn't practice quite as much, or, hey, they have a deficiency here, let's go attack that a little bit more. So I'm not trying to avoid the question, but sometimes it's we implement an offense and then we tap into different aspects of it from week to week that we think, behoove us to be successful.
There you go. And all those little tweaks and added elements, that's what I keep up with, right? I track those for you guys. And I think that's what makes his offense so tough to stop in a lot of ways. All right. So we'll get to the break here, come back, go behind the burnt orange curtain. And Sark was asked the one question I was waiting on someone to ask. Finally, someone did. We'll come back and give you Sark's answer. And it's about the most problematic issue for the Texas offense last season, which was red zone offense. And what does Sarks have to say about the issue of red zone offense and what may have been the reason and the factors for their precipitous decline in productivity in that area? We'll talk about it. Sark confirms my theory about what happened to red zone offense. We'll get into that when we get behind the burners curtain right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get back to some Texas football conversation. So there was one question that I was waiting on a member of the media to ask Sark, and it was about red zone offense. As you guys know, I've been obsessed about it. It could easily have been considered the reason that Texas lost the 2 games they lost last season because of red zone offense and Texas being 120th in the country in touchdown percentage in the red zone. That to me is considering all the resources they had, and Sark being a brilliant play caller, play designer, and Quinn's going to be drafted potentially in the first round, heaviest offensive line in the Big 12 in the conference at the time. 3 receivers that were drafted into the NFL, an NFL tight end, running back drafted in the second round. You get it. I mean, you got a ton of talent, and yet they just couldn't figure out what they wanted to be in the red zone, and they didn't really have one specific concept A.D. Mitchell was probably their most effective player or even most effective weapon period in the red zone. Other than him, they really never found a consistent identity in the red zone. And I studied it. You guys know I went through it, broke it down, went through a lot of the play calls and all of the different personnel groupings. What were the most successful play types based on yards per play and success rates, conversion rates. And I couldn't find a consistent factor in determining, why they were so lackluster in the red zone. I couldn't find that one thing. If I did, you guys know I would have shared it with you, and you'd have heard me talking about it over and over again, beating that hell out of that dead horse. I never figured it out. It was, and I described it to you guys. I told you it was one of the big mysteries from last season. And I don't think, and Sark didn't figure it out during the season because they were never great in the red zone. They had one game, Oklahoma State, where they were pretty much a really good team in the red zone. And they got somewhat better toward the end, but they still ended up 120th in touchdown percentage in the red zone. And it wouldn't be such a big deal if they hadn't had, a top 5 red zone offense in 2021. And then year after year, as the team has gotten better, Sark has gotten better, red zone offense has gotten worse. That's a key area. That's like one of the top 3 most important areas on offense in there with turnovers and third down conversion, which, by the way, Texas is not great at third down conversions. They're average. They're like 70th in the country. So that's fine, but you can't get worse. And you can't be 120th in the country in touchdown percentage in the red zone, 90th in red zone offense, and be 70th in third down offense, and then expect, okay, you know what? We'll make it up with explosive plays, which is also kind of a top 5 metric. At one point, this will come back to haunt you. So here's Sark when he's asked about the red zone. And he confirms my 2 theories on what happened to Sark in the red zone. One, Sark's development as a red zone play caller has been stunted because of Bijan and Rojo. So essentially, I call it the Bijan-Rojo hangover. Put some Bijan on it with a side of Rojo. That's all Sark did in the red zone his first 2 years here at Texas. And why wouldn't you? You'd be stupid not to. Work smarter, not harder. And there's no point in being creative and innovative and trying to get a tactical, strategic, schematic advantage when you got Bijan and Rojo. Just hand it to those 2 dudes, and they will solve the problem for you. And they did in Sark's first 2 years. And then when you lost those guys, you really hadn't developed an identity in the red zone yet. Because why would you? You had Bijan and Rojo. And that led me to the second part of my theory as to why Texas was so bad in the red zone. They had no identity in the red zone. They know who they want to be in between the 20s because Sark's offense is all about explosive plays and maximizing space and creating space, engineering one-on-one matchups. So then all that speed can win in the open field and create these explosive plays and yak yards and yak daddies. And it's a gumbo of force multipliers and cheat codes and all these hacks. And I've explained all that to you. A lot of those advantages are mitigated once you get in the red zone and the field shrinks and the space is constricted. And a lot of the advantages that Sark's offense usually has because of the cheat codes and all the force multipliers, that all goes away. It all dissipates in the red zone. And you got to have an identity in the red zone almost separately than the one you got in between the 20s. So my second part was identity crisis. Listen to Steve Sarkisian when he's asked, what happened in the red zone? What did you figure out? Here it is.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a byproduct of a few things. We lost Bijan Robinson. Anytime you lose a top 10 draft pick at running back, that's going to affect some of your play. We lost Roschon Johnson too, who's a great player, and those two guys and the Wildcat aspect and some of the things that we like to do with him there. And then last year comes around and every year is different, and we missed some opportunities that I thought we could have taken advantage of that could dramatically change that number. The play caller, me, probably maybe at times tried too hard and different things. And so you just get back to the drawing board. And like every year, you have things in areas that the things you want to work on, you want to place an emphasis on. And we've definitely done that. And I think we've got enough versatility in our offense to be a lot more effective in the red area because we're going to need to be. We work way too hard to get ourselves all the way down there and be so efficient between the 20s not to put the ball in the end zone.
Boom! The man himself came to the same conclusion I did. Did all the research. I'm sure he's got a more efficient way to do it than all these damn papers here. But he came to the same conclusion that I've been telling you guys. It's just post Bijan and Rojo, man. And then after that, who are you post Bijan and Rojo as a play caller in the red zone? Do you want to be a jumbo package guy? Because that's what you tried to do and play bully ball. Didn't work. Do you want to use a lot of trick plays, innovation? Could try that. I don't know if that works. Do you want to think players, not plays in the red zone? Like, no. We're going AD Mitchell and JT Sanders, baby. Red zone. They're my red zone guys. Who are you in the red zone? Are you more of a team that wants to throw it in the red zone because you got a veteran quarterback who fit in tight spaces? Or when you get in the red zone, do you want to impose your will and be a physical football team in the red zone? I just don't think Sark knows. And will he figure it out? Of course he will. He's a damn good coach. He'll figure it out. He'll solve the problem. I guarantee all this offseason, that was his emphasis. He just said it. So I think he's actually downplaying how obsessed he was with that in the offseason. And my suggestions have been simple. I went and did the breakdown of red zone plays and that at least were successful for Texas last season from a conversion standpoint, from a yards per play standpoint, and from a success rate standpoint. And essentially what I found is I think they should use more misdirection in the red zone. More misdirection in the red zone. They don't use enough of it. 6 out of the 10 most successful concepts based on those metrics they use misdirection in some way, form, or fashion. Everything happens so fast. If you're the defense and you make a miscalculation or a wrong step and you get them going one way and go back the other way, misdirection works every time. And think about some of those, the whip routes that we've seen. That whip route from Xavier Worthy where he goes in and whips right back out and they throw it to him and it looks like he's wide open. More concepts that use misdirection. Where you're talking about route combination? Are you talking about a bootleg and a waggle? Are you talking about the pre-snap motion shifts? That I saw worked really well. More RPOs because a disproportionate number of the successful concepts are RPOs. More pre-snap motion with the misdirection. More pony package. You go look at the most successful offenses in touchdown percentage in the red zone in the NFL. San Francisco 49ers, the Miami Dolphins. I'm talking about over the last 3-4 years, the Green Bay Packers. Not a lot of teams in the NFL use 2 back sets. Where you're talking about a fullback or you're talking about a pony package set with two tailbacks. And yet those are teams that are also consistently in the top 10 in red zone offense in the NFL. There's something to that. That's more than a coincidence. There's something to that. And Sark's from that coach, that Shanahan tree. You have a pony package, which is the most effective, most efficient, and the most explosive personnel grouping for your football team. Use it more in the red zone. Use it more in the red zone. There's a reason it's working for the 49ers. It's working for the Miami Dolphins, working for Green Bay Packers. And they're from the same tree. Y'all got the same West Coast passing game. A lot of your connective tissues, right, are aligned philosophically, ideologically. Use it. Go study that tree. Go take more from it. That's what I found. I think just those subtle adjustments would work in the red zone. And Quinn's got to be better, quicker, getting through progressions. He's got to, I think, handle pressure better because it's going to come really fast because everything happens a little bit faster in the red zone. So they have to be better because they got nowhere to go but up. But I do think Sark looking at some different personnel, the pony package specifically, and more misdirection, more pre-snap motion, be more extreme instead of being he usually remember we played that cut from Lane Kiffin talking about the balance in Sark's offense. And there are times where I think he's too much of too balanced, like too moderate. It may be time in the red zone to be extreme. And he tried that, right? It's the jumbo package is about bringing in Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy in the backfield. He got extreme. He's like, no, we're going to play bully ball. We're going to bring in all the mass, right? We're going to have 2,000 pounds of mass on the field to push you out of the way. Did it work every time? No, not really. He actually had to resort to trickery, right? Even with the jumbo package, right? Throwing to Tavondre Sweat because they couldn't just go out there and maul teams and impose their will. So I think he needs to become more extreme with some of the concepts they work in the red zone. But there you go. So I'm glad he came to the same conclusion I did, and now I'm going to stop stressing about it. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I was worried about it because I was like, what is he going to find? I couldn't find it. I do research as well as anybody. I couldn't find it. Somebody's got it. Well, somebody figured it out. He couldn't find it either. He found the same thing I found. God bless the man. Great minds think alike. We come back. We got off the record on the other side. We'll dive into some stories from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis, some lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is This is a crazy story. So apparently, this comes from Mashed. It says that do you shop at Costco? I mean, why would you, right? You just wouldn't.
No,
Well, I
I'm
guess
a
you got a roommate, so
I do, but we don't buy we're not buying stuff together.
Yeah,
so
we just started because some stuff we basically determined what we use a lot of, and we're like, we use too much of that to be buying at the grocery store. Let's just buy it at Costco. So whether paper towels or whether something else that we use way too much of, right? So that's what we do. And it this article, it says that Costco, which you can buy college football tickets at Costco. Like you can buy anything at Costco.
Yeah, they have tons of stuff.
Like that's a real thing. Like I read that.
Like them and Sam's Club have all that stuff.
Yeah.
Those bulk
wild.
stores, yeah.
You got any damn thing. So now, based on this report, they're selling, like basically doomsday survival kits, or what are being described as kind of doomsday survival kits. And it says this will drop basically the kit's usual price tag apparently is pretty high, and I guess this is going on sale. And I got it from, like I said, Mashed magazine here. But it claims that whether you believe in doomsday clock or not, there's nothing wrong with being prepared for any potential disasters that may come your way. Food and water are most commonly bought survival items, according to this article that I'm reading here. So basically, they've put together a single pallet of Costco ReadyWise Doomsday buckets for the reasonable price of $24.99. If you're a Costco member, you can buy a Doomsday pallet essentially for $2,500. This is what they're claiming here. 432 servings of pasta Alfredo, 432 servings of cheesy macaroni, 216 servings of teriyaki rice, creamy potato pasta and veggies, 216 servings, chicken noodle soup, 216 servings. You get the point. All right. Got breakfast on here. We got all that stuff. Would it be worth it for anybody to buy this? I mean, I guess it is a hell of a bargain because you would get a lot of food, but only for people who have like a compound. If you have a compound, this is a good idea for a compound.
Yeah, because you already built the compound. You're already
you got to have a compound.
Yeah, if you're in for a penny, in for a pound at that point, right?
Yes, you got a compound. This is a great purchase because I mean that means you probably got some sister wives around there.
If you
extra families,
if you've got the compound and you've already got it and you have not already stocked it up, what are you waiting on? You're waiting on a deal to stock it. I mean,
that's what they're getting people who are. You're right. These are compound-oriented people, or people who are stockpiling like their storm shelters or their everyday shelters.
Frugal doomsdayer.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I want to be prepared for the end of the world, but at the right price.
Hey, just throwing it out there, man. You can get everything at Costco, including a doomsday kit, apparently. Doomsday.
I can't. No, pallet. I'm not gonna.
Goodies.
Because also, I there's going to be at least 2 or 3 things in there that I don't want to eat. So I'm like, do I really need to buy 400 of this thing that I'm never going to eat ever? Even if like you're like, yes, it is doomsday, but also I've never been one that felt that if doomsday happens, that's it, lights out for Patrick.
You don't care about being prepared for it. You don't want to be prepared for doomsday.
I don't want to be alive. Dude, what is my job? Rod, I talk
You're
about
not trying to survive doomsday?
Rod,
you're not trying to survive
how long before sports talk radio comes back after doomsday?
Well, you're not going to need money.
We're not going to make it.
In theory, you're not going to need money, though. See, so I don't need to do sports radio because I'm not going to need money. What I'm going to need is the guns. I'm going to need food. I'm going to need gasoline.
So
what becomes currency at post-doomsday is going to be very different. A lot of stuff we value now ain't going to mean a damn thing. This phone ain't going to mean a damn thing in doomsday. All right? Ain't going to mean a damn thing because we're not going to have access to the internet and all that after doomsday.
Yeah, I don't know.
You got to think post-doomsday, man.
Post doomsday. So I'm saying I have no desire to do Mad Max cosplay. No, I'm good. It was a good run, guys.
I'll just say, yeah, if you want to survive post doomsday, you got to think about that.
Dude, you understand? Man. Just say a world with no air conditioning. Like, cool. I'm out, guys. I'm done.
You said you're gonna die a slow death anyway, so
yeah, might as well
take me out with your rapture or whatever it is.
Take me out with whatever it is. I don't want to just
I don't contemplate doomsday very often.
Hey, we don't have cars anymore. All right, cool. Good run, guys. It was fun.
No TV, no cars. We're basically kind of going back to the Stone Age. That's basically what it is. It's
no desire for that. I can't.
Mad
You
Max.
can't give me.
Water's going to be really important during the doomsday, post doomsday. Water's going to become like the most valuable resource. It already is really valuable, but you're talking about water's going to be, because even gasoline may not be as important because you just may not have anywhere to go. Like where you gotta go, man. I guess you're trying to get to maybe a coast, trying to get to some water. You're trying to get to maybe Montana or Idaho, somewhere not. Where do you think the doomsday? Where is unaffected by doomsday? The most unaffected place by doomsday? Are we assuming that it's going to be like the heartland? Like, is doomsday going to hit the coast? Do we know what the doomsday is?
We don't know what the doomsday is.
We assume it's going to be some like some nuclear thing, a nuclear attack or some kind of. In that case, it's going to hit the populated areas. They're not going to be bombing or sending missiles to Montana and Idaho. So that's where you need to go. You need to be trying to get to Idaho and Montana, where I'm assuming there's a lot of people with shelters in doomsday. A lot of doomsday folks probably in Montana and Idaho. That's probably what you're gonna be trying to get.
No, you move out. Yeah, you move out. I'm good. That's fine.
You're not trying to.
I'm running towards the bomb. I'm running towards it. Make it quick.
There's something new about Patrick today.
Make it quick. He
does not care about surviving the apocalypse. A lot of y'all are gonna be struggling to do it. Frank's like, no, I'm gonna sit back, watch some TV, and just let it happen.
Yeah.
The TV that's left over anyway. All right, there you go. Random conversation there for Off the Record. We come back, we'll get into we'll get back to some NFL news, notes, and nuggets and conversation. But also we'll hear from Quinn Ewers. We're from the starting quarterback at University of Texas, and a couple of cuts from Jadae Barron and Kelvin Banks. Haven't gotten into those yet. We'll do that as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Papers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a new theme Thursday. It's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, who comes up with all the musically themed days of the week, he comes up with a really creative one for new theme Thursday. And this one is actually the new theme is all about the celebration of the anniversary of America winning the space race and stepping on the moon for the very first time. So all the songs reference the moon in some way, form, or fashion to celebrate the anniversary of the moon landing. So we appreciate Patrick and all of his creativity. And that, I believe, that's this weekend will be the anniversary of the moon landing.
Yes,
not exactly today, but this weekend. So yeah, I mean that's let me see. What's the I want to say there's a new show coming out actually about the conspiracy theory part of the moon landing. Like, is it a show or a movie that's coming out about it? I'll have to get you the name because I want to say I saw that preview not too long ago, and maybe this is probably why they're timing it out with the anniversary. So I didn't realize that, but that actually may be something happening. But I know there's some folks out there who want to jump on the grassy knoll with the conspiracy theory. You guys know I love a good conspiracy theory. I'll sit on that grassy knoll all day, every day with you. I'm not sure I'm there with the moon landing, but you know, hey man, to each his own. If you believe in that conspiracy theory, I can't judge you because I got some that I believe in. That I got something like, no, that I'm believing in that conspiracy theory. That's just one that I believe in. So unless it's really crazy, I'll
give you one of the less harmful now.
Yes.
In 2024, it's true. Not that one's not as harmful as some other conspiracy theories.
Yeah, like some yes, some
incite
are very,
violence and other things.
Great
and
point.
You're like, that one, I don't know if anybody's inciting violence over stuff that happened.
No, well, we just had an assassination attempt on the president.
Yeah. So,
and there are tons of conspiracy theories out there about it already. So when the JFK thing happened, it must have been the same thing. Like literally, we react the same way. We just kind of start throwing it out, and it's because we don't have the information. And God bless our government, but they're not very transparent.
Yeah.
With anything like that. And why should they be? That's national security issues, stuff like that. I get all that. But that's with that vacuum of information, and transparency, you get people kind of making stuff up, and
they're gonna fill in the blanks.
Now, yeah, exactly right. It's like, hey, you know what? This makes sense to me, so that's it. That's fact.
That's fact.
I'm accepting it as fact.
Yes.
and then once they accept that, then it's hard to actually present the material to change their mind. The problem with our society is not that we make up our minds about conspiracy theories, stuff like that. That's fine. That's actually healthy. And a lot of that's intellectual curiosity. This is really good. Like you should be intellectually curious. You should want to learn more. You should be curious about stuff, and want to learn why and how. But the problem with our society is nobody changes their mind once they got it made up. Yeah. Once they make their mind, it's like, nope, that's it. It's like, well, what if you're presented with information that tells you your opinion is wrong, or that there's a better way to do it, or that your logic is flawed, and we won't do it. We society won't do it enough. We don't do it politically. We don't do it whether it's socially. Sports is one of the only places I think people do it a lot of times in sports debates. Somebody gives you the actual stats and break it down like, hey, look at this. I'm telling you, Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback. Look at this. Boom, 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 boom. You go, you know what? It's a good point. It's a valid point.
No, that's I like.
We would not do that in politics at all.
No, there was a meme where someone posted a thing that was like, my favorite thing is that somebody posted, I think, my favorite is when people post something, when people post facts that people will change their mind. And then the person responded with, well, actually, there's multiple studies that show that is not true. And they posted the studies. And then the person said, yeah, well, I'll still believe it. And they're like, see, you're proving the point.
I posted you. I gave you the receipts. I gave it to you. That's the study. Read it for yourself. Nah, I'm good.
I still think if people are given facts that they'll believe
I'm gonna believe this random Facebook post with no cited sources at all. That is the fact that I'm gonna believe it. Yeah. I mean, that's how we are. So it's okay. I love us. All right. Let's get right to it. Before we get to we'll get back. I want to hear about Quinn, because we've heard from Quinn earlier, but we'll get to some Sark sound about Quinn, and then we'll hear from Quinn, the starting quarterback at the University of Texas, and then we'll have Rod's rant of the day. We'll talk about some of those rankings from the highest, the basically the top 10 highest ranked receivers in the NFL. There's a new list that's out, courtesy of that Jeremy Fowler survey of execs and coaches and scouts. We'll get to a little bit of that. We get some Raj Rant of the Day and talk some NFL, but mostly getting back to SEC Media Days. We'll get back to some of that audio. But first, the Horn headlines. So let's get educated, let's get informed, let's get updated on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis, and we'll come back and dive into some SEC Media Day discussion.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Team USA improved to 3-0 after a 105-79 win over Serbia yesterday. Steph Curry led the way early, scoring USA's first 9 points before finishing with 24 on the game. Serbia kept it tight, tying the game at 28 with a buzzer beater before the end of the first quarter. USA was able to pull away in the second quarter, getting a 14-point lead before half. Bam Adebayo had 17 points, while Anthony Edwards had another good game, scoring 16. Team USA now heads to London for its next warm-up game with South Sudan on Saturday. In the MLB, teams will get ready to restart their season tomorrow with the Rangers welcoming the AL leading Orioles to Arlington, while the Astros are heading to Seattle to take on the Mariners in a series for control of the AL West. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. We appreciate those. All right. First, let's hear from Sark talking about his quarterback, Quinn Ewers. This is cut 28, Patrick, if you'll have that ready, please. Sark has been very complimentary of Quinn. And when he's asked about Quinn's growth, he actually starts talking more about his leadership and intangibles and immeasurables instead of the actual development of a skill set or any element of his on-field play. He usually starts with the macro of the man before the player, which I think actually is important. And Quinn's got a new swagger to him, and he should, right? So I always say swagger is when you got confidence to spare. That's swagger. You can sprinkle some of your confidence and give it to others because you got so much of it. Hey, it goes past confidence. That's VY had a lot of that. And it can be a quiet swag. It doesn't always have to be outgoing. It doesn't always have to be the charismatic, largest personality in the room. That can be some guys, but for Quinn, I don't think that's the case. But he is definitely carrying himself with a different swagger now, and I think that's something that Sark talks about. So here is Sark talking about Quinn's progress as the quarterback in Texas.
I'm really fired up for Quinn. I think back to when he arrived and he was just trying to survive in essence. And we kind of threw him out there and he did some really good things and had some days that weren't his best days. And that's part of developing and growing. And then you go to year two and you watch how he played in some of our biggest moments and when we needed him to be really good. And then coming into this offseason, as much as it's been his physical development, I think his personal development, his emotional development is something that has instilled a ton of confidence in everybody in our building. He walks in that building like he is the starting quarterback at the University of Texas for a top 5 football team. And I think that has permeated throughout our locker room. Even the way I think he's carrying himself today is drastically different than maybe how he carried himself a year ago. And so to me, that is probably the biggest thing. Now, do I want more touchdowns, less interceptions, higher completion percentage? Of course, all those things. But I think those things are a byproduct of his preparation, or a byproduct of the confidence that he exudes and the way he goes to work, his relationship with his teammates. And I give him a lot of credit. When you have this many new receivers and working with those guys, I was on the grass with them yesterday watching these guys throw the ball around, and it was like it looks as good or better than before. I mean, it's fascinating to watch, but I think that's a byproduct when you have a veteran quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, Texas, one of the few schools that, in terms of continuity, they have a multi-year veteran quarterback, a multi-year starter at quarterback. And he's been with the same offensive coordinator, with the same play caller, which is Sark, and a lot of continuity ahead of him and above him in the hierarchy. where he doesn't have that continuity is at wide receiver, which we'll hear from Quinn talking about that. But first, let's hear from Quinn talking about why he came back to school. He could have left, went to the NFL, didn't have a guaranteed first-round grade. Even Mel Kiper said he would have suggested that he went back to school, and he had a second-round grade on Quinn at the time. The belief is that this year Quinn's going to take a leap that will cement him as a first-round quarterback, potentially top quarterback overall. At least he's got a shot to be that guy. Here's Quinn and his thoughts on his journey and why he came back to University of Texas this season.
Yeah, I think one of the main things for me was just getting more experience under my belt. And, there's kind of a line of demarcation for guys who really have success in the league. And obviously there's some guys that have rare accounts of it not being this way. But, there's a line kind of like at 25 starts that guys, you really see like a jump in how their career went. And I just kind of wanted to give myself a better chance to have a long and successful career in the NFL, because I don't want to be a guy that just comes and goes. I want to be somebody who's remembered.
Oh, I like that. I don't want to be some guy that comes and goes, just gets my bag and I'm done. I want to be remembered. He's talking about legacy. That's a maturity thing for Quinn. I hadn't heard Quinn speak about legacy and talk like that, imply that since he's been at Texas, but just shows you that he's in a different mindset, as he should be. But the wide receivers, that's the turnover, around him. That's what I think ultimately is going to determine how quickly, Quinn starts to achieve at a high level, and how quickly this offense reaches its ceiling is going to be this rapport and the chemistry with the wide receivers. So here's Quinn initially when he's asked about what's your rapport like with the wide receivers? How has that gone this offseason with so many new faces?
Yeah, no, for sure. Getting timing down with different guys, and because with that receiving crew besides AD, that was year 2 for me with those guys. So I was comfortable of how they were getting in and out of breaks, and like you said, it does take time to get used to that. And, I think we've done a pretty good job so far, and I think it's only going to get better, especially during camp.
That is the hope during the spring game. Not that it means a damn thing, but he and Isaiah Bond, they didn't look like they were on the same page, seemed like they had great chemistry yet, but still got plenty of time to figure that out. Here's Quinn talking about Isaiah Bond as a receiver and his skill set that he brings to the table.
Well, I think he's capable of making big plays, like we saw last year. And, he's my age, so we connect in that. We were supposed to come out the same class, but I left early anyway. He's fast. He's got good route running, and I can tell that it means a lot to him. And he wants to go far with this football thing. So it's always good to have guys that want to succeed and want to play at a high level on your team.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of eyes on Isaiah Bond. So there'll be other guys like Silas Bolden, Ryan Wingo coming in, who also will have opportunities in this expanded wide receiver rotation. We know that. We heard that from Sark. So here's Quinn talking about some of the new faces. We know Ryan Wingo is a freshman, but he's a 5-star guy with a lot of potential, and it's going to be impossible to keep him off the field. Then Silas Bolden, who missed the spring, but has come in this offseason. Here's Quinn talking about those 2 additions and what they bring to the table.
Yeah, starting with Wingo, the maturity that he has at such a young age, and his ability to understand what we want to do on the offensive side of the ball, and his ability to go up and make plays is, I haven't really seen anything like it. So for him to come in the way that he has, I'm excited about, what he's going to do for this university. And then Silas, coming from Oregon State, I think he's going to be a huge contributor to our success for sure. I think he's going to do a great job wherever Coach Sark ends up putting him. I think he's going to do awesome things with. Surprisingly, he's a shorter guy, but he'll go up and catch those 50 balls, which was surprising to me. But it's always good for me to see.
Yeah, Ryan Wingo is the interesting one. He's going to play sparingly. I think at the beginning. And I say sparingly, I just think he'll play more toward the end of the season, of course, because I think once he gets more comfortable and familiar with the offense, they can move him around different places. He may end up being your red zone weapon. He's your biggest receiver that's in that rotation. that we project to be in that rotation. So he may be the guy they look to in the red zone. To me, kind of reminds me of Roy Williams. Not the same player, and not the same playing style. Just in that was the last receiver that Texas had that had those combination, the combination of rare elite traits all in one. Right? Usually, wide receivers have an elite trait. It's one or two. Like it's Xavier Woods has got his speed. That's his elite trait. AD Mitchell's a bit of a handful because he's got more than one, right? We found out he's got speed as an elite trait. He's got his body control is next level too, so he can go up and make some of those the Cirque du Soleil type catches at time. So most receivers, they don't have 5 or 6 elite traits. Rand Wingo does. The size, he's got some world-class speed. He's got the jump ability to make contested catches. He's just got the ball in his hands. He can be a yak daddy. That's something that Xavier Worthy had that was really good. AD Mitchell is not really a yak daddy with the ball in his hands, right? So that's not one of his elite traits. Well, you get a receiver that's got 4-5 elite traits that I have to account for as a defender. That's overwhelming, and that's what Ryan Wingo potentially brings, and that's why he reminds me of Roy Williams, because Roy Williams had 4 or 5 elite traits. Size, he was big, he had strong hands, he was fast, he was a track star, so he could leap too. So his leaping ability was crazy. I had a 40-inch vertical that was unbelievable, so he can win 50-50 balls and go up. He was underrated actually with the ball in his hands. They would run reverses with him. Go ask LSU, Nick Saban's LSU defense, how he runs with the ball in his hands. That's to me is what Ryan Wingo just kind of reminds me of. Texas hadn't had a receiver that has that many elite traits in a while, right? When you had Lil Jordan Humphrey, what did Lil Jordan Humphrey and Colin? What did they lack, right? In Colin Johnson, they lacked speed. They didn't have the elite trait.
Yeah.
They didn't have change of direction as an elite trait. They were big bodies, though. 50-50 balls. Big bodies, big hands, great body control by Colin Johnson. Those were the kind of receivers that Tom Herman liked. So like I said, usually you don't have a receiver where you got to deal with that many elite traits and defend. With Ryan Wingo, he's a problem. What else is a problem is the SEC can be a problem, especially with that transition for Quinn heading into the SEC. So Quinn was also asked about the difference between the Big 12 defenses you're going to face and the SEC defenses that you have to face and how you're going to adapt to it. Here's what Quinn Ewers had to say.
Yeah, well, I think one of the main things is just the talent overall. I'm not saying the Big 12 wasn't talented, but I feel like in the SEC there's a lot more first-round guys. A lot of good coaches that put them in the position to go to the first round. But I think it means a lot to these guys, and they don't do Big 12 was kind of a lot of 3-3-5, and some teams in the SEC do it, but some teams don't. So that's going to be an adjustment that we're going to have to take a look at for sure.
All right, that's Quinn talking about the difference between the Big 12 and the SEC defenses. And when Jackson Dart also spoke about the transition into the SEC, he also spoke about the drop 8 philosophy that is really popular in the Big 12, the 3 high, 3 down safety concept and defensive package that is really successful and really popular in the Big 12. Texas saw a lot of it last year because it countered Sark's offense really well in past seasons. And you don't see that as much. And you're not going to see the drop 8 philosophy. 3-3-5 essentially is right there, right? You got 3 down, and you can drop that back 8. You don't see that as much in the SEC. You're going to see more 4 down. You're going to see more traditional looks and more of your NFL-based defenses rather than some of your more exotic, progressive concepts that you would see in the Big 12, which is more experimental. And which is what I liked about the Big 12, right? We talked about this because there's such a separation in talent between Oklahoma and Texas in the Big 12, that ecosystem. Everybody's trying to adapt to those 2 apex predators. How do you close the gap between those 2 teams who have so much more talent than you do? Well, you got to do it schematically. You got to do it with innovation. You got to be creative in the way you do it, and that's why you would come up with all these, very creative ways, or whether it be bringing in air raid offenses like they did with the Mike Leach, or using the 3 down defense, using hybrid players, whatever it may be. And that's kind of what the Big 12 was built on, which was interesting. All right, so one thing that is going to be, I think, a real advantage offensively, not for everybody, but for the teams that can utilize it correctly, will be the new headset communication. We know that, and they basically have taken the NFL rule, so it's pretty much the same rule where you can talk to the quarterback, the head coach, or offensive play caller, whoever they choose, can talk to the quarterback up until a certain amount of time. They'll shut off the headset communication. I believe it's 15 seconds left on the play clock, and then after that, the quarterback is on its own, which is how it is now in college, where you don't have headset communication. That's an NFL thing. So Quinn was asked about the headset communication and how it is going to work, at least between Texas. What's that protocol? Here is what Quinn Ewers had to say.
Yeah, we've used the in-helmet stuff, and it took me about a week to get used to, but after that first week, I really enjoy it, and I really like having Coach Sark in my ear, and I think that's just going to make things a whole lot easier, on my end. And it's going to be good for him to be able to communicate things like what he's seeing in the back end, or what protections he likes in that ordeal, mid-drive, instead of having to call a timeout or whatever it looks like to communicate those things with me.
Yeah, I think it's going to really help the 2-minute drill for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I could see it.
Right? The 2-minute drill is just going to be, I think it's going to boost it tremendously now, because they'll get the call from the sidelines like everybody else will get it from the sideline with the hand signals or the poster boards or whatever. And now the quarterback can just hear from the coach, and he can just kind of walk you through it, like literally in your ear. All right, here we go. Da, da, da. And you're already going up tempo, so it doesn't give the defense time to adjust. If you are talking to them while they're at the line of scrimmage, that gives the defense time to maybe disguise something and move some pieces around. But if you're just going straight up hurry up mode, 2-minute mode, you're running to the line of scrimmage trying to snap it as quick as possible. And literally, I think the coach is talking to the quarterback as he's running to the line of scrimmage to get things set up. So I think that's what will probably help the most. But I think it'll be advantageous to the offense more than the defense.
Yeah, and I could see, in a situation where you're going down on a 2-minute warning or 2-minute drive, the 2-minute drill, and you maybe Quinn doesn't see that one of his wide receivers on the out, because the progression he's watching is on the other side. He doesn't see one guy get blown past, and Sarkin in his headset go, "Hey, watch on your other side on this next one." Like he's destroying his, like that. This is a mismatch. And he could point out a mismatch in the 2-minute drill that you would never normally have to call a timeout, and then they could switch. The other team can switch that out, so you can't really communicate, hey, watch out for that. This is dominating right now. I think you can just say in the headset, be like, turn to your right, honestly, or turn to your left.
Honestly, Patrick, you're right about that. Even outside the 2-minute drill, right? Yeah. You have plays that, and we see this all the time, just going back and watching the game, you see it on replay, and you go, oh, man, that tight end was wide open.
Yeah.
And how does Sark communicate that, now? Well, you have to get him to run to the sideline if he does that, or send a player in with the message like, hey, man, on this play, you got to go watch, the tight end, or you need to go watch the slot receiver on the side. He was wide open. Their adjustment, they didn't see him. And now you can tell the quarterback real time and then say, let's run it back.
Yeah, and you can hurry up to not let him switch rotation.
Exactly. We're not going to let them switch it. We're going to do the exact same thing and see if that's the same choice they make. If that's the same choice they make, then what's going to be wide open. It's going to be wide open.
And because you can do that, and if you run the quarterback over and the other coach sees it, he can switch a personnel. Or if you run a player out, then you have to make the defense. Yeah, so any of those things. But if you just have it now, you could just run that play again. And now he's going to be on the other side being like, do not leave him open again. They're running the same play. Don't leave him open again.
Yeah, there's so many. Yeah. Oh, man. Like I said, we haven't even really gotten a chance to, I think, explore the infinite advantages there are for offenses being able to do this. I think there are some advantages for defense, but I just think, I'm a defensive guy, and I'm telling you, there are way more advantages to this communication for the offense than there are to the defense. And Sark, matter of fact, let's hear from Sark, because Sark talked about the headset communication as well. and how it would work for him. What is he going to communicate to Quinn? Like what actual pieces of information, bits of information are you giving him via the headset right before the play, right before they have to cut off the headset communication? Here's what Steve Sarkisian had to say.
Yeah, no, I think naturally the play call, and the thing I try to do, and I think I've been fortunate to having spent time in the NFL and work with Matt Ryan and in those things, is sometimes you just don't want to get paralysis by analysis of giving him so much that he can't even operate the play. And so the subtle little reminders are helpful. And maybe that reminder is not for him. Maybe that reminder's for CJ Baxter. Maybe that reminder's for DJ Campbell at right guard. You can get to some of those things that you know are vital on that play. Maybe it's the reminder of, hey, I don't want to snap this ball until there's 1 second on the clock, okay, because it's third down, and if we have to punt, I don't want – he'll know why I'm saying that to him. So there's little subtle reminders like that. But in the end, it also gives us an opportunity to huddle and maybe give him a few more opportunities to audible on his own, where I don't have to, because I can give him the audible into his headset. Hey, if it's this, check to this, and he can allow to go do those things. And so there's a lot that can go into it. We're fortunate, like I said, when you have a veteran quarterback, it's a little bit easier to manage that stuff.
All right, there you go. That's Sark talking about and he seemed to echo a very similar opinion of Brent Venables, who said, I don't want to overwhelm whoever I'm speaking with who has the green dot headset communication. I don't want to overwhelm them with too much information. Football is a game you play on instinct. A lot of it's muscle memory as well. And you don't want a player who is playing their process to be slowed by thinking too much. All right, a lot of it should be natural reaction, instinct, because you're practicing these scenarios and this technique over and over and over again. And once you're, in that situation, a lot of it should be instinct and just kind of natural response, spontaneous response to situations based on your football instincts. And I think you eliminates that, or you slow that process. You stunt that process when you are overloaded with information. It slows you down. You don't want to do that. So I get that from both sides, and I think that's actually pretty wise. All right, last clip here before we get to the break, and we'll get to Rod's rant on the other side. And Rod's rant will play. There's one clip from Jade that I want to play, and one from Kelvin Banks. We'll get those before we get out of here. But also we'll get to some NFL discussion. They've now wrapped up those top 10 player lists they're doing for ESPN based on the survey of execs, coaches, and scouts. We'll talk about what teams have the most top 10 players based on that list. We'll get to that. But first, Quinn was asked about the Texas A&M rivalry. And he had an interesting little anecdote here about his family's view of the Texas A&M rivalry. Here is Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, I mean, it stopped playing back in 2011, if I'm correct. I was pretty young. I think I was 8, but, just hearing like stories and what my dad and family has talked about it, my dad actually said that he thinks that him growing up, he believed that the A&M game was bigger than the Red Rivalry game. So I'm excited to have that game back. And it's going to be a cool experience, especially going to Kyle Field, Thanksgiving weekend. And I know that place is going to be rocking, so we're all pretty fired up for it.
All right, there you go. That's Quinn talking about the Texas A&M game. He did remark that his dad told him at one point Texas A&M game was bigger than the Texas OU game. Before I got to Texas, maybe it was, but since the time that I've been at Texas, hell, in 2000 when they won the national title, Oklahoma did, that game has been considered a more national and a more marquee rivalry than the Texas A&M game. But I have said, and I've been on the record, this season, and it's an outlier, but this season, the Texas A&M game is bigger. But it won't be bigger than Texas OU next year. And prior to that, that has not been the case. But this year, it feels bigger, just this season. Speaking of, that actually relates to the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, which we'll also address on the other side. All right, we come back, we'll get into Rod's rant of the day and all of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Yes, I know a lot of you are frustrated with the traffic, but that's just a sign of growth. That's why, Austin is one of the fastest growing cities in the country. And with that growth, more people, you're going to get a little bit more traffic, but that's okay. As the city continues to grow and thrive, so do organizations like Ironworkers Local 482, which help contribute to that growth. Many of the iconic landmarks that we love in this city were actually created and built by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. The folks over at Ironworkers Local 42 don't just go to the office, they build it. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity or a refreshing career change, or you want a new challenge, or you want to feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local 482. And right now is the perfect time to do it. They're hiring over 3,000 people for a huge project right here in Central Texas. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So right now, become a member of Ironworkers Local 482 and take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that helps shape the future of our great city. So go online today and apply at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. I want to get to some NFL, just say a couple of NFL topics here. I know we've been SEC Media Day heavy because Texas had their showing at SEC Media Days. Speaking of the NFL, there is an NFL SEC related story, but we'll get to that later. So Jeremy Fowler's been doing his survey, or at least releasing his survey of NFL execs, coaches, and scouts, and they are ranking the top 10 best players at every position in the NFL, and they've been doing this for a couple of weeks now. We went through the quarterbacks. We even recently talked about the wide receivers. Now that they've done all the position, here's the tally. The teams with the most top 10 players at each position, according to this list, the 49ers have the most. See, the 49ers have 9 top 10 players, according to the NFL execs coaches on the list here. Says the Lions have 7, along with the Chiefs and the Ravens. Eagles have 6, Texans along with the Texans, and then Packers with 5. Man, that's a lot. This is why the 49ers are. You see why they're I'm gonna say desperate times because they're really successful. They keep making it back to the Super Bowl, and they're winning the NFC. But it does feel at this point, if you're the 49ers, it does feel a bit hopeless because what more can you do?
Yeah.
You have like what can you add? What can you do? What can you do? Like you had a 10-point lead on, Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs twice. Now one of your weapons once out, you can't let Brandon Ayuk leave, and so there is somewhat at least for the fans, they're starting to feel like, man, are we just going to keep reliving this nightmare over and over again to get to the Super Bowl? I feel like we're cursed and just lose to Patrick Mahomes again. It's like I said, the talent's there. I mean, they're loaded. They got all the talent they need. Now they got the quarterback. Maybe you know what I think the hope could be? The growth of Brock Purdy. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the growth of Brock Purdy. If Brock Purdy does actually continue to evolve and he becomes a top 10 quarterback, that's revolution. Because they haven't had one of those. Right? They haven't. He's the best quarterback of the group they've had with Jimmy Garoppolo. Trey Lance didn't work out for him. So if he can take a leap to being a top 10 quarterback, and I believe on that list he was like an honorable mention, so he was outside the top 10 honorable mention. But if he becomes a top 10 quarterback next year, that's the leap because he's got to outdo Patrick Mahomes.
So they need 10 guys on the list.
So yeah, you're right. Because I was, yeah, pretty much. That's basically what I'm saying. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, you're right. The Chiefs have 7, so the Chiefs got they got their fair share too. But yeah, that's it. You're right. So I'm saying they need a 10th against the Kansas City Chiefs because Patrick Mahomes counts. Honestly, to me, this is the question: is there anybody on this list who is there a greater distance between the best player at their position and the second best? Is there a greater distance than any position other than quarterback in the NFL between the best and the second best?
Probably not.
Like he counts to me. He almost counts like another extra spot, right? It's almost like it's 1 and he should be 2 as well. And then you get to 3 and 4. He's that good. Because I said there's a distance. I mean, Justin Jefferson that much better than Tyreek Hill?
No, I mean
some people probably say Tyreek Hill's better.
Yeah,
that's kind of 1 and 2. I'm talking about 1 and 2 at that position.
Yeah,
right. Like I don't know if there's a greater separation between 1 and 2 in any position in the league as there is between the top quarterback. We don't even know. I don't even think we even agree who number 2 is. Some people say it's Lamar Jackson. Somebody I would say it's Joe Burrow.
And that's what's
Josh
thing
Allen.
is like the difference between 2 and 10. I don't think is as far.
Oh, because they got Dak at 10 at quarterback.
That's what I'm saying. If Dak's at 10, I don't know if the distance is that much. You know what I mean?
That's a great point. It may be a shorter. There may be a shorter gap, or at least a wider gap, I should say, between 1 and 2 at the quarterback position than there is between 2 and 10.
Yeah, because 2 and 10 in the wide receiver is a monumental gap.
Yeah, let me get that.
Because that's 10 is Ayuk, and I like Ayuk, but he's not. He's not remotely close to the top category.
No, I agree. No.
So that's just looking at those 2 areas, like if you say Dak and Joe Burrow, I get Joe Burrow's a better player. Anyone would take Joe Burrow over Dak. I get that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the distance between the 2. Dak is still getting MVP votes. Dak is still putting up numbers. Dak is still doing a lot of things. So I don't know if that distance is monumental. Wherever you say, if you were to say, well, we need a quarterback and you got to give up this much to get this guy and this much to get this guy, versus if you say the difference between Tyreek Hill and Ayuk, well, no, Tyreek Hill's going to be the guy.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
And I mean, I have to imagine. I haven't looked, but like the defensive tackle, I have to imagine the difference between 2 and 10 is humongous. Just because there's not that many great defensive tackles.
That made me want to look at. I got to go look at the D tackles and see because Chris Jones obviously be at the top of that list.
Yeah,
and see who they have at number 2. But still, like I said, the gap won't be as wide as
and because Chris
Mahomes.
Jones is only on there because Aaron Donald retired.
Aaron Donald just retired. Yeah, exactly.
Because otherwise, Aaron Donald's one.
Yeah, and that was used to be a gap between him and Chris Jones. And Chris Jones is awesome, like literally unblockable at times, and there was still a gap between those two. Yeah, I think that's why Kansas City is just so damn tough to beat. That's part of it, man. It really is. All right, that may be something we'll get into. Maybe tomorrow I'll actually do the research on number 1 and number 2 on those lists and see what the gap is. But that's how good Patrick Mahomes is right now compared to. And on that list they had Joe Burrow as number 2. Oh man. And Joe Burrow is awesome, but Patrick Mahomes is that much better than Joe Burrow. And on the O-line, that would be tough because they got Zach Martin as number 1 on the O-line. And they didn't do – they did interior offensive line. So Zach Martin's number 1. Maybe that one. I got to go look at Falcons' Chris Lindstrom, but maybe that's one actually where there's a sizable gap. I mean, Zach Martin's a Hall of Famer. So maybe that's one. No, because at offensive tackle, Trent Williams and Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell's a monster.
Yeah,
Penei Sewell's great. And Trent Williams, though, that may be another one too. Trent Williams is in another, he's in another universe altogether too, in terms of how he's been the best left tackle in the game of football for a while now. So anyway, there you go. So I thought that would be interesting to get into because the 49ers. Just based on that list, they far and away have the most talented team in the NFL. Hell, remember, based on all pros and the all pro list, the Cowboys, they had 9 all. They had more all pros than everybody else, and we saw how far they got the Cowboys too. Not far enough. Okay, I wanted to get to. Do we have? I don't know if we have time for it. We might have to play you guys more Jade and Kelvin Banks tomorrow, and I promise we'll get to it because just a couple of clips I want to play. They didn't have a lot of clips to play, but there are a couple that we didn't get to, and I promise we will. We played pretty much all of the Quinn and Sark sound they wanted to get to, so we can get into that tomorrow. We'll still be talking SEC Media Days because we'll be reacting from the news today.
We still get Arkansas and A&M today. There will be questions about Texas in both of those. You play Kentucky, so you could get some questions on that one as well. And we'll see if they ask Auburn about Iron Bowl versus Red River rivalry.
Yeah,
I know which one's easier to say.
What you brought up the number because I've heard people talking about this, about how many teams at SEC Media Days have been our coaches have been asked about Texas.
I believe it was 7 of the 12 is what I had read.
They had gone already.
Yeah. They at the podium had been asked about.
That's crazy. And so your base is gonna be 3 more guaranteed, almost. So that'll make 10.
Yeah.
Because you said
10 out of the 16.
Obviously, Arkansas it's gonna be Arkansas. It's gonna be A&M, and then somebody's gonna ask Kentucky about playing Texas because they played Texas this year. It's on the schedule. So it'll be 10. Wow. That's documented. That's on stage, you said. I bet in breakout sessions, it was probably everybody. If you
on Radio Row or somewhere else,
Yes. I haven't listened to all the breakout sessions, but I bet that's the case too. All right. We come back. We'll have our we'll have actually who said that when we come back. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, we're supposed to identify and recall who said that. We'll have that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. New theme Thursday on the Rodcast. That's where my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, he plays jams that are devoted to the new theme, and the theme is a celebration of America winning the space race and the moon landing, which we'll celebrate that anniversary this weekend. So a new theme Thursday devoted to that great accomplishment. So we appreciate Patrick hooking us up there. Also, we appreciate Patrick hooking us up for the topic for the big fat poll of the day. Final results of the big fat poll of the day. And I got to admit, they are surprising, or at least not for now, the final results, but final results for us on the show, talking about them. Which true road game scares you the most next season for Texas? Right now, Michigan is leading the poll. 40% of the folks who voted said that Michigan is the road game that they fear the most. A&M is second at 36%. Then the Arkansas Razorbacks to Vietnam, 19%. And 5% say Vanderbilt. I know that's a troll job. I just don't know why y'all not taking this poll seriously, man. I don't like that. All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the top for the Big Fat Poll today. Let's get to who said that. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio and based on the audio, sometimes from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world. Based on the audio, the context clues, or the familiarity of the voice, you're supposed to identify and recall who said that.
There's no easing. Like he's going to have to get out and be ready to go. We got a lot of competition on this offense. Brett Veach and Coach Reed did a great job bringing a lot of competition in. And Xavier, I mean, he got a lot of mental work in these last few weeks that he had during OTAs and minicamp, but it's time to go now. And I mean, y'all saw it with Rasheed last year and some of the throwing up days he had. I mean, we're gonna push you to the limit and prepare yourself to be ready to go for the season. And that's not just him; that's everybody. And everybody has to have that mentality when they come into camp.
Oh, that's Patrick Mahomes. And he's talking about Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy's been dealing with some injuries. That's why he said mental reps. First, he had a hamstring injury, so he's been dealing with that. So that was tightly wrapped. He injured that in May, and he's been dealing now with a left hand sprain. It's a minor injury, but still he's catching passes, and his leg is wrapped up, and he's receiving kickoffs too. So he's there, but he's dealing with some minor injuries. So there you go. My man Xavier Worthy and Patrick Mahomes. That could be a deadly connection. As a Texas fan, I love it. As a Texans fan, I hate it.
As a fantasy football fan, I'm not sure yet.
Oh, yeah. See, I don't play fantasy. Yeah, if you're a fantasy, that is that and you know what? They got Hollywood Brown there now too, and Rasheed Rice. Really,
yeah, we know how many games Rasheed Rice are going to be suspended though.
Ding, ding, ding. And that's why Xavier Worthy being injured early, not a great thing, because he was supposed to take some of them targets.
Yep.
And some of those reps that obviously Rasheed Rice is going to be out for. All right. Good stuff there, Patrick. As always, we appreciate you. We appreciate all you guys out there for listening as well. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same channel. Hook 'em and peace.